friends. This is the Be Real Babe podcast, a place where your average babes come together to talk about life stresses, messes, and successes. A place where being yourself is the ultimate goal, where your opinion, your story, and your individual experience matters. Join me, your host B, and my guests for real and raw talks every week, laying it all out there so we can all help each other learn more, grow deeper, and evolve collectively. Now keep in mind, as a disclaimer, no one here is an expert and no one is giving any advice. This is strictly our opinions, thoughts, feelings, and for entertainment purposes only. Now with that being said, it's time. So grab your drink, grab your joint, and let's jump right in. Welcome everyone. Welcome to the Be Real Babe podcast. If this is your first time here, thank you so much for stopping by the show today. I hope that you have a good time. And if you're a returning listener, watcher, supporter, thank you guys so much from the bottom of my heart for coming back time and time again. For those that don't know me, my name is Brandy. I'm the host of the show, and today you guys are on episode 226, Being Real About Canada versus US. I'm just kidding. You guys know me. You've been around the show, or maybe this is your first time. I am an absolute lover of all Americans and Canadians, and I absolutely hate the division. And I thought I would bring on one of my favorite human beings, Torva, to come on to talk to me, since she has lived and breathed what it's like to be American and Canadian. And I just also wanted to catch up on her life and what she's doing, because she's one of my biggest inspirations, a motivation for me to continue doing what I'm doing. And when I'm down in the dumps, I just think about how hard she has fought and all the things that she has done, and she just motivates the fuck out of me. And I know a lot of people in our community always want to know where she's at, what she's doing, what's going on. And again, just mentioning that she has been in past episodes, 169, 182, and 201, talking about her experience in the medical world and industry here with her cancer diagnosis, what it was like going through cancer, equally with her husband on, and what it's like to be living with someone who is going through cancer and cancer treatment. And of course, we talk about and criticize the government, as they are just online with me. And that's how we actually met, was criticizing the government. And today I thought, like I said, perfect guest to talk about Canada, the US, and what it's like to grow up here in Canada with me, and then in the US with her down in Texas and touring around as a military child, which is something that is so foreign to us Canadians, I think. So I am super excited that you guys get to listen to this awesome 2-hour episode of, again, catching up to Torva and her medical journey with cancer, and her second round kicking the shit out of it, and then talking about what it's like to live in Canada, the US, and the differences that we see within our countries, and the commonalities in which we also have a lot. But anyways, guys, before we get into this amazing episode, I just want to remind you, if you are watching on Rumble, Apple, or Spotify, to like, subscribe, turn on notifications. You can also leave comments and reviews. You guys, it helps me so much. I'm seeing them pop up more and more. It's just incredible, the amount of follows I'm getting on Spotify, the views. We're coming around the corner in 20,000 plays. I hope to hit that by season 10 in the fall. That would be an incredible milestone to hit. So thank you guys so much for listening. If you haven't listened to all the episodes, go back. If you're curious of what episodes you should listen to, depending on what you like, just shoot me a message on Instagram or TikTok at the Be Real Babe or the Be Real Babe podcast. I would love to direct you to certain episodes. And then also a reminder that I am on YouTube twice a week, Monday, Keeping Up with Canada, and Wednesdays for Internet Insanity. So you can actually catch me 3 days a week, just on, catch me outside, catch me on 3 different platforms. How about that? 3 times a week. And always here to direct you if you guys have a topic you want to hear about, and also equal love hearing your feedback, even though season 9 is completely booked. So if you guys are looking to get on season 10, let me know, because I am going to be start collecting that in a couple months. I will be taking the month off of July, so the YouTube channel will not be going in July. I'll pick back up in August when I start recording in August. The podcast will go through to the end of July. I'll take a break on YouTube, but then you'll be able to see YouTube in August, while I'll take a break in the podcast and start recording for September. So technically, I'm not going to be taking any content breaks, but I will. You just won't see them. There'll be a little bit of a break, but you'll be able to hear me every single week, year round. Lucky you guys. But I'm going to shut the fuck up, because this episode was amazing and we need to get right to it. All right, babes, it's time to get on to the show. And with me today, I have a very special returning guest joining me for her fourth time. I'd like to welcome Torva back to the show. Hey, babe, how are you?
Hi, is it really my 4th time?
It is your 4th time, queen. I counted today. Oh.
I can't remember things, so.
No, that's totally fair. I even wrote them down. So the first time you came out, which we met in fall of 2023. Yeah, when we first started talking, when you started going through all your shit and you and Donovan were speaking out. And I was like, oh, the spice that these two have, I need it in my life right now. And you were like immediately in my DMs, and like, I think we've been like super close, I feel like, as
Yeah.
close as you could be online friends.
Yeah. Yeah, our friendship has really grown since then. So I'm
Yes,
really grateful for it.
totally same. And then, so yeah, you came on just by yourself. So March 2023 was when we first recorded your first episode, and that was episode 169. And then you and Donovan came back in June 2024 for episode 182. So the first one we were talking about your
Yeah.
experience, and it was really focused on your cancer diagnosis and your treatment within Canada, or well, BC specifically.
Yeah. That.
That time, yeah. And you're kind of like not going through it, but it was through your first going through it, I think. And then you
Yeah.
went through it after. And then you
Right.
and Donovan came back in the middle, and we talked about more keeping up with Canada, about
Mhm.
legislation and stuff that affect your
Affected
fucking
health.
life. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And your guys'
Absolutely.
perspective, especially being health nuts and all that as well. And then your last one was 201 in November 2024. And that's when you were done your first going session of going through it before your second going through it. And that's where we left
Yeah.
off on the
November
show wise.
2024. What a month, because like I was
Yeah.
just starting to feel a little bit tired,
Yeah.
but like
Interesting.
we didn't know that it had come back yet. So yeah, what
That's
an
where we
interesting
were.
month to have captured my that's the one I forgot about. So
Yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah.
yeah.
That was about
Things
your
kinda happen
experience.
after that.
Yeah, and it was the both of you two that came on, and your experience as obviously going through and at that current time not knowing in remission,
Yeah.
and Donovan's perspective as a husband, and that was just like super impactful. And again, I thank you guys for that.
Yeah.
And then today too, especially just because of the you've lived in both Canada and US, and you've experienced the medical side, Canada and US, and living and growing up. And then
Yeah.
I do want to talk about, because it's politically funny right now to me, this whole like, elbows up Canada versus US, and we're both a
Yeah.
lover of both. So
Yeah.
exactly. So we'll get to that too. And that's what obviously we were going to talk about mainly today. But before, just because, you have been so important to me in this community, and I just obviously always want to know how you're doing. Maybe we can start with, okay, November 2024, you came on the show. You're currently in remission, but sounds like there was some signs unbeknownst to you that maybe it was coming back. And maybe let's start there, and then we'll go into to the past of what it was like growing up in America, so I can learn as a I can let
Oh,
a
good fun
Canadian.
conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was lucky that I was able to get my blood work done every month.
Nice.
Most follow-ups are done every 3 months. But somebody was looking out for me and wrote me a order for having my blood work done every month. So
Good.
I was able to catch a recurrence really, really early, which was fantastic. And I mean, you want to catch it early and nip it in the bud.
Yeah.
But once again, so I caught it in Canada. It was early December. It was like the 4th or 5th that the blood test came back. I opened up my computer and I looked at the results and I just froze. I really couldn't believe that my tumor marker was elevated again. I was in such a state of shock and disbelief, because I felt like I had been doing so much to prevent that recurrence. I mean, like the stage 4 ovarian cancer has a really high rate of recurrence, like I've been saying all along. So should it have been that shocking? No, but you always want to believe like it's not going to happen to you.
We don't want to live in the state of it's being aware of it, but not living in the everyday perpetual.
Yeah.
You kind of want to put it out of your brain for a minute until you really have to deal with it. And then it's like, oh shit, this is the moment that, okay, I have to deal with it, right? I can't just be like, as you should.
No, it's also fortunate that it was more than 6 months that it came back, because that gives me some better treatment options still in terms of conventional treatment. But still, like it came back 8 months after I went into remission, which is pretty damn soon.
Yeah.
So talked to my BC oncologist, and in our brains were like, hey, maybe this time we can do this here.
Yeah, of course.
Literally, my trust in the system is so dissolved that it takes nothing for me to be like, okay, no, I'm out of here.
No, just kidding.
And in this case, it was just like the oncologist was like, yeah, that's a little elevated. Let's wait about 2 weeks and then we'll do a CT scan.
Why are we waiting? Why are we waiting?
Come again? Meanwhile, I talked to the team in Seattle and they were like, can you get here today? Because if you can get here today, we'll get you in a scanner. And I was like, I can't get there today, but I can get there tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so, I actually had a video go viral somewhat, because when we were on our way down to Seattle, Donovan, I'm driving, right? Because I love to drive. And Donovan's recording me like ranting about how like I cannot fucking believe once again I'm having to leave Canada to get medical care in a timely fashion. And I don't know why I can say I can't believe it, because I shouldn't be able to believe the opposite at this point, right? Anyway, so I ended up just like, Donovan, I'm going to stay down here and get my treatment. It was December, and so again, we were separated for the majority of that. But we both said, hey, you know what? This isn't working in Canada. Mm-mm. So ultimately, here we are in Texas now. Surprise, for those of you who don't know. And that was wild. But I'll just finish my health update. So I got in for treatment. It was a different treatment protocol than my last one. It was a little bit harsher on me, honestly, and my body probably wasn't even fully recovered from the first round. But I kicked myself back into remission after whatever, as of April 14th. So, and now I'm doing a maintenance. I'm going to be doing a maintenance drug trial. That's like, it's a really cool drug because it's kind of new in that, like, it's in phase 3. So like, the drug trials, they start with phase 1 for safety, and then phase 2 for efficacy, and then phase 3 kind of like, let's really ramp this up. So it's going on all over the world. And I'm in the middle of getting qualified for it. Everything looks good. There's no reason why I should be disqualified. And so I should be starting it next week or the week after.
That's amazing. And that's the reason, like the main reason to going there, right? Is to be able to do this trial.
Yeah, there was a lot of factors that went into us choosing Texas.
Fair. Where we picked too.
The trial, like that was we looked at so many different things. And then finding this trial. So what it is, it targets the folate receptors on cancer cells. So we had to make sure that I had a high amount of folate receptor on my cancer cells, which I do. So it was kind of like my oncologists all were like, yes, you want this trial. If we can get you into it, let's do it. So, and it was here. So.
Is there any Canadians outside of, like, you're obviously going there? Are there any other Canadians that you know of that are going through this at all? Like going through these trials?
Well, what a good question, honestly, for
Sorry.
We did not pre-discuss this.
Oh, no, we didn't.
Delighted to know that this trial, or this drug trial, is actually going on in Canada in multiple provinces: Alberta, British Columbia, and Ontario, and Quebec.
Oh my gosh. Okay, that's good at least.
So I said to my BC oncologist, hey, is there any, just because I just wanted to know, is there any chance I can do this trial in BC? No.
Oh.
No reason given. Just no.
Oh. Even though you're like a perfect candidate for it.
We're done here. Yeah, we're done. Yeah, exactly. It's just like no reason given. Just like, they would give me no reason for saying, no, you're not a candidate for HIPEC, the heated intraperitoneal chemo. No fucking reason. So yeah, why I was done. So yeah, we, after only, like, we talked about it for like 2 weeks maybe. And by the end of December, we were already like starting the process to get Donovan immigrated, and we were able to fast track it because of my medical condition. And so he got his green card in a matter of, or his visa to get his green card in a matter of like 2 months. Yeah, 2 months.
It's amazing. And that's like kind of where, I mean, we don't have to dive off to right now, but a difference of what you're hearing a lot of the times, it's like, oh, it's super hard. And like, yes, obviously this is a situation you have, where you have, but I feel like for the most part, what I've heard is people that go through the right avenues for the right reasons, especially if you want to start business, you want to start doing stuff down in the States. It's actually not that hard. We've talked like, oh, I'm so glad you guys are going down there because, if we decided to ever move to the States, that's where we would go as well. And we always wondered about that too. Like it'd be hard for me to leave the cannabis sector if we ever had to go because I love it, but you never know, right?
Yeah, of course.
But we'd be the same way. We'd pick that way because for multiple reasons, it's more of a place I feel like is aligned. And I hear about Southern comfort or hospitality all the time. And so I'm just like, I want to know what that is. So expect us at some point. I just need my passport.
Yeah, please do. It would be so fun to have you come down here and we can have, we went to the rodeo last night. And that was so much fun. Like, I was born in Texas. I've spent a total of 11 years of my life in Texas. So a quarter of my life has been spent in Texas. And I've never gone to a rodeo.
That's so funny.
Well, last night. No, so it was fun. Yeah.
There's different phases in your life too. It's probably like when I was younger, I was like forced to listen to country music. And then there's a span in my teenage years and like early out, I was like fucking hate country music.
Yeah.
But then now as I'm getting older, I'm like, I absolutely love country music now.
We'll have to compare. I was very resistant. mean, we
Yeah.
all have like our own baggage with
Of
everywhere
course.
you've ever lived. So initially I was very resistant to Texas.
Fair.
Donovan's like jumping into it like
Yes.
feet first,
Yeah.
like getting Stetsons and like building country playlists, and I'm just like, turn that shit on around me. But now I'm like, hey, let's put that on.
I
Let's
love
put
that.
country music on again.
Yes. It's like
Um,
reclaiming that part of your
yeah,
life
I
with
guess so.
and
Yeah.
you get to decide how you feel, right? I think that's the healing part of it. Like, okay, that part of my life I've personally forgiven and let go of. So that country music doesn't trigger me like it would in my past, because of my past that's what it represented, as such a dark time and something that I didn't like to go back
Yes.
to. And now it's like I've taken that. Actually, I really like the like EDM, the like country music that's mixed with like EDM, so it's a little bit faster
Yeah.
beat. It kind of gives me more
I'm
of
liking
like,
that. Yeah, I'm just discovering
yeah,
that too.
I'll
Let's
send
I'm
you a
like,
couple
I
really
can
good
get to
ones.
this.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
teach
let's
them
just
for
keep
cardio
the 90s
class.
country off for
Yeah,
now.
exactly. Yeah, the
And
only ones I
and like,
allow was like the classic Shania, maybe. That's it. But the rest,
yeah,
don't
I
bring me
haven't been
back.
able to get back into her yet.
That's
Well,
very
because I'm
fair.
like, I
And
owned it,
you,
I played it to death, and
fair.
I'm just like, okay, I feel like a woman, I get it. Shut up.
I get it. Shut up. You're fucking next. You
You're
could
a
say
woman,
that.
get it.
Yeah, you
Shut up.
could make that movie or
Yeah.
that kind of music these days and age. But I'm really glad to hear that you're through that you're through around fucking whatever this is now. But I feel like this time, like I feel
Yeah,
like you healed a little bit differently, and you approach, like you said, you're healing differently, not
totally.
only in the treatment but the
Yeah.
mindset. And I think you like you guys said, you're a bit more reserved this time. You kind of held it
Oh,
back
very.
from, and like
Yeah.
to each your own. Like I think you heal the way you need to. So the first time I
Yeah.
think vocal and anger was the way that you felt cathartically letting it out, and this time
Yeah.
it was more introspective and
Absolutely.
quiet and just kind of seeing. And then now that you're feeling healthier, or not, like, yeah, in a space to
Kind of
talk about
healthier.
it more. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was also kind of like I really felt I haven't talked about this, so
No,
but I also felt a little sense of shame in a sense, because I
of
was out there
course.
talking about like, you can do so much to help prevent a recurrence.
Mhm.
And I never meant to, like, I was never giving the message that you can stop it.
No.
Um, but to be like, if you do these things, it'll help you. And then like 8 months go by, and that's all, and I get a recurrence. So, but it made me just turn my focus and say, okay, this go round
Mhm.
is about me healing. It's not about me helping others, which I love to do,
Of
but it's
course.
about me helping me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I need
Filling
to
your own
look
cup
at
first.
everything that I think I know
Mhm.
and reassess it. And
Yeah.
so, where I was, a big shift is in like what I'm focused on and what I'm eating.
Mhm.
So
Okay, cool.
before, my focus was on trying to eat lots of vegetables, and I am not giving dietary advice to
Mhm.
anybody. I'm just talking about me. So
Opinions, just opinions.
my thought,
Opinions. Your experience.
my world.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, trying to like eat tofu for reasons I can't even tell you why, but it seemed like the right thing to do, right?
Of
So when you
course.
get cancer, and
Of
I
course.
was eating, I wasn't like vegan or anything. I was still
Mhm.
eating meat,
Mhm.
but I started abstaining from sugar, which I still stand by that.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it was just kind of like slow and steady wins the race.
Mhm.
So this time around, um, I'm I'm actually like trying to accelerate weight loss, because
Mhm.
like one of my highest risk factors for recurrence is my weight. I'm
Okay.
overweight, and
Okay.
I don't say that
No.
disparagingly to myself. It's just a medical fact.
Yes.
And that puts me that's the ovarian cancer is one of the whatever 7 or 8 cancers that is metabolically driven,
Okay.
and obesity is a
Huge
risk
playing
factor,
factor.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I am medically in that category right now. So like the best thing I can do is get the weight off me.
Mhm.
And so I'm doing that in as healthful but as aggressive an approach as I can.
Fair.
Right now I've gone like keto and
Cool.
carnivore.
Good for you.
Yeah. So, and you don't
Down
really
there's probably way easier.
yeah. I like
Up
meat.
here is so fucking
I like meat
expensive.
a lot.
Yes. Yeah.
Don't like tofu. Please don't ever make
No,
me do that.
I don't.
But
Sorry.
the thing is, so like protein is really important too.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of like there's this whole study about like how there's multiple studies that support having muscle mass is really important for um, cancer of any kind, because
Okay.
the
Good to know.
one of the number one ways people die from cancer is the wasting,
Okay.
right? So the more muscle you have, the more time you're buying yourself anyway. But also it's just linked to higher survivorship in and so I'm like, well, I fucking love to lift weights.
Yes.
I've certainly been known to be a strong
You
chick in my
are.
life.
You're so much stronger than me.
So not right now, I'm not. Not right now.
No, I've watched you lift, and I'm like, I'm still a bitch.
Yeah. What? You see what?
Every time I see you lift, whether you're in remission or just starting, I'm like, you're still stronger when you even say that you're not as you're strongest. I'm like, bitch, well, you're still stronger than me. Maybe I could outdo you in cardio. Put us on a trampoline
Absolutely,
or
you could.
yeah, fair.
Yeah.
But like
Yeah.
actually physically lifting, like your lowest is still like my PRs, girly. So just so you know.
Okay.
Please take that and run with it. Yeah, take it and be motivated with it, because every time you're like, oh yeah, Brandy's out here cheering me on.
It's not that it's a contest.
No, but I like it's things you like to be motivated about things, right? And like highlight where celebrate where, you know, I was like, I'm motivated by that. I'm inspired to be that one day. And it's like, I hope that you see me jumping up around and my cardio and being like, yeah, that's awesome. I want to be, you know
It's
what
awesome. I love it. Yeah. I love what you're doing with the cardio and the dance and the trampoline. I'm just like, that, you go, girl. Because so I'm like getting out of breath watching.
And it's like, it's challenging for my brain too, right? So I love just going downstairs, and some days I do go to lift, and to your point that like, I just think lifting and moving your body in any way is super important. And I'm really happy to hear that there's studies that relate to that, and that is a focus, and that you're not taking it as it's just a medical thing, and you want to set yourself up for long success. We have to have some self-responsibility. And if we know, and that everyone's body's going to look different of what overweight or underweight is, but if we know that either extreme is going to lead, because I'm sure underweight people, it doesn't help with cancer either, right? I'm sure there's exactly, right? So it's just like, it's not to be rude, it's just to be honest about it, right? And nourishing food is so good for you energetically and all of that. And then even if you have some bad stuff, right, then you do the movement where you're sweating a lot of it out and, you know, detoxing your liver. Like our bodies are so, and I think that's where you're at last time. Our bodies are so fucking powerful. So I completely understand. And please, I hope you do give yourself grace. But of course, your self-reflection, you feel how you feel. But I think at that time, I think you're very much being like, I understand and I have informed consent on what my options are for this round of trying to stay in remission, and I'm going this way because it feels more aligned. And hey, maybe it didn't work out, but you knew the odds were high, right? So I hope that you do have grace as well, because you also wanted to, if it was coming back, I feel like you were able to live a more aligned life doing it this way versus if you were to do the medication. That's just my thoughts on that from an outsider's perspective. But you know, it was just
so I'm doing both, you know. I'll be doing this balance. The first time I went without any medical intervention, and I still think that was the right choice for me at the time. And this time I'm doing kind of the both approach, like changing my body and also the medicine. You know, I'm also focusing on keeping inflammation down and keeping stress down. Those are two things that I have never in my life focused enough on. So that's like reversing inflammation in my body and reversing. I have always been like high stress person. I just kind of carry it with me, but I'm working on reversing that. And I think that's also really powerful. Like, so I won't be doing like running and CrossFit because those things are adding cortisol into my body right now. And I'm going for walks instead, which I love. So
and that's a beautiful thing. I think people get it tripping. It's like, to take care of your body, like, hey, if heavy lifting and the CrossFit is your jam, fucking but like, we also have to be right, and we have to be understanding in certain parts of our lives if that stress that you're putting on your body is putting it in more of a fight or flight mode than a chill mode, and is it like being counterproductive to your goals? And there's absolutely nothing wrong. All you got to do is raise your heart rate. So whether that's through CrossFit, lifting weights, and you can lift weights without going crazy with the heart rate, but still building, like you said, that muscle, that strength. It's not getting your highest of highs. Like, I feel like CrossFit is like the highest cardio with the highest weights, right? So you could bring that down.
It's the intensity, right? Like CrossFit is all about like intensity
almost.
and again, like, I think it's great for a lot of people, but for me, it's like setting my body on fire.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have to eat a lot of food too when you're doing that crazy of stuff too, right? Where it's just like,
Yeah.
right now with those kind of other diets, letting your body eat the nutrients that the diets are probably, are more carb loaded when you're doing more heavy, intense stuff like that to be able to have all that energy. Right. So it's not necessarily the diet's going to be great for that type of exercise right now for you either.
And
but
every time I've ever tried to lose, and I've done it many times, tried to lose weight while doing CrossFit, the weight loss stops. And I muscle, fat, blah, blah, blah. Like I have a scale that shows me both, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely fair.
It literally though just stops.
Plateaus,
so
yeah.
without me changing anything else, like I don't eat more because I'm doing CrossFit. I'm eating the same, and my body just says
still
no.
nothing. Yeah, fair.
I can only presume and like surmise that means my body is still inflamed. It's saying no. We're not dropping a pound.
Yeah,
we're under attack.
Yes. And that's so funny to me because I also had an addiction to the gym where I'd go like 7 days a week and I had to lift 7 days a week, and then I plateaued. Yeah, it was just, and it's not like I lift crazy heavy. Like I wasn't like, it was just every day I would go and work out, right? And then maybe that was active cardio one day, but most of the time lifting, right? And then now when Grant's gone and I have so many other things, I'm doing it less and less. And now I'm doing it like 4 days, 3 days with boxing, like, and my body is responding so much better to that when it's like actually has its time to rest and it's doing other things like boxing instead of just doing shoulders and chest or whatever, you know what I mean? And, but we get it twisted in our mind and we get caught up in trends or thoughts or communities, right? Where we're just like, you have to train this much. Like even, you know what I mean? I'm like, I'm not a bodybuilder. What am I doing here? I'm just wanting to be a good lifestyle.
Your muscles are built in the rest.
Exactly.
They're not built in the gym.
Exactly. But it was a huge hustle culture when everyone started first going to the gym, right? It was just like, don't rest, And it was so beat into your head. But then to your point, like, especially for women, it's not the best for us when we're going through hormonal changes, right? So it's always good to support your body when with cancer, I'm sure that's a huge thing, right? Your hormones have a lot to do with it, I imagine.
Well,
stressing them out doesn't help.
I don't have hormones anymore.
No, that's fair. That's fair. But like before that, was that the part two that was not helpful, right? Like your periods were not good times.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. And just basic women too, right? Like there's times where it's like, you should just chill a little bit because your body's just like bleeding. It's like, if you want to have a nap, you can have a nap. But hustle culture. But I'm really glad to hear that you're feeling better and feeling good about your past stuff too, because that's, I think, like you said, there's lots of shame and I think people get caught up in it and held into it. And that's where you go into depression. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. And so I did experience some depression while I was going through it again. Cause it's like, really, again, like what the fuck? But it was just a time of deep introspection and spiritual work and, that kind of like healing journey that I needed to be on. And I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
So, and now I'm, like I said, I'm back on like, this is, I think, the first time in my life where I've really said and maintained like my focus is on me. Literally, like this is. I've never been that before. No. Never done that before. So
no, and you get to, and now I feel like too, you're in an environment, home situation. You're in a home, like a beautiful home. It's so cute, and like you said, getting into the culture of like down south, which I do want to get into in a little bit. But just like having that now, having Donovan, him being able to do all the things. I know there's a couple bumps along the road as you went down and all those things, but at the end of the day, I think you guys know, just like when we moved down, even though it's province to province, all the bullshit. You're like, it'll be worth it once we get there. It'll be, and now you're together.
Saga we haven't even been able to import the car yet.
Yes, that's why we're recording this weekend. Of course, anything Canada. But I'm glad to see that like you guys have pushed through and you're on the other side. So I think that's helpful. And then you probably feel more safe knowing if something happens, you're in the areas that you need to be. Your man's there with you. You know what I mean? Like, and obviously you have space, to have people come visit and family and stuff. And you have family, in the States, so maybe a bit easier for them to come and travel to see you being in there instead of having to come up here and deal with Canada.
Yeah, we're all planning Christmas in Texas right now. So
yeah, that'll be so different contrast to what you said, 9 years. I think for the most part you've been in Canada for Christmas. So, right? Yeah. Is that fair to say?
Well, the last two have been at my parents' house in the Seattle area. Yeah. But they have said like they're interested in coming down for Christmas, and our daughter's going to come down for Christmas. And
so that's so amazing. Okay, cool. Well, I'm so happy to hear that all the good positives.
I don't know if so she's still going to school on Vancouver Island.
Right.
So
Yeah. Oh, she's on the island. I wasn't sure if she was in Vancouver on the island. Good to know, still on the
Yeah,
island.
she's on the island.
Perfect. So a reason to come up and visit. So then maybe we can like somehow meet, like in Vancouver or something. We can meet before you go to the island or something like that.
Not safe. Not safe.
Oh, sorry. Just for visit when
No,
you're good
it's
after the trials,
Yeah.
whenever you're
Yeah.
feeling safe to, or I'll just come to you. So then you're safer. Because I really want to come to Texas. I feel so. This is why I want to talk to you about Canada versus US too. Because I
Yeah.
only have been to Vegas, so I have no idea
Okay.
what the states really are. That is to me not what a representation of what all of the states are.
Yeah, I think Vegas is definitely not a representation of
No.
most of America.
I agreed. It was a lot of fun. I'm not gonna lie,
I'm
very
sure.
fun time. But I knew it
I've
wasn't
never
like
done Vegas, but yeah, it's not my thing. But I've definitely have seen like I don't know, a lot of people enjoy it.
Yeah, I had a great time. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, I wouldn't be against going back, but just as I'm a busy person and I like to do a lot, and there's a lot to do there to have like lots of experiences. And I think it's kind of like there's people from all over the world that travel there, which I think is really cool. But I do want to learn and come visit more of the states and see different stuff, like watching you guys go through it and like seeing what was it, Minnesota? That was it Minnesota? That was
Montana.
That's what
Oh
it
my
was.
God,
Yeah.
so beautiful.
Yeah.
I had never been to Montana or Idaho.
Oh,
Or like the eastern part of the state of Washington, which is like vastly different from the West Coast.
The west side. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, there's a desert in Washington State.
Oh.
What? I didn't know that. Yeah, and then we went down to Yellowstone, which I went to when
At the time that Park Talk was blowing up, I was dying. I don't know. There's something on TikTok called Park Talk, and yeah, we won't get into the political things, but as you guys were going through it, because I knew you were going like down there, and I didn't really want to interrupt, but I was just kind of laughing.
Sending me like Grand Teton memes that were vulgar, which is funny.
So you guys were there. I was like, you guys could not be there at a better time. TikTok is blowing up with all the parks, and you guys are literally in the one that is the raunchiest. I was just dying. I was like, I wanted to be like, give me some of that. I'm going to make some of my own Park Talks. It was just a really funny time. I was like, this is hilarious because I know people actually going through a bunch of these parks right now. So it was just something that you like watch in lifetime that I don't get to experience often. So thanks.
Sure. It was fun. I don't necessarily say like, yeah, go
do that.
Go ahead and take a U-Haul, 20-foot U-Haul towing a car through Yellowstone.
They're awful.
But it wasn't snowing, so that was good.
Yeah, that's a good time to hear. I would freak out.
Yeah, it was. We both kind of became pro truck drivers.
That's fair.
How many days were we on the road? I think. We left Campbell River on Friday.
Yeah.
And we got here on Wednesday. So
wow. And then where'd you guys sleep? Like in the car or in
we slept in hotels.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah,
of course that makes more
sense.
That makes more sense.
There's cool buildings on the side of the road where you can pay for a room.
Really? We don't have those in Canada. Just kidding.
They have them in both countries.
That's one thing we don't have to argue about. Oh goodness, I don't know why in my mind I'm like, we'll just sleep in the car because maybe I'm just thinking like go for a sleep a couple hours and go. But it's good that you had some time to actually like be human beings and stop.
Yeah.
Good.
Barely. I mean, we were doing like 10-hour days.
That's not great, but at least, you know, like you said, sleep for a couple hours. In my mind, sleeping on the side of the road. So that's better. Good to know.
Meals.
Okay.
Yeah. Like we would do like 2 meals and I lost like 5 pounds on the trip itself.
Well, there you go. That's just don't eat and you go. Just caffeine and go.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Magic.
It's so magic. Okay, cool. Well, glad that you're down there. Can't wait. It gives me another reason to come down. And that's one thing I love about the podcast is that I've literally met almost one person almost in every single state in the US.
Really?
Yeah. And so I was like, if I want to travel anywhere, I honestly should just find out where all my guests are living and just make this map and travel to each one and just say hi in real life to everyone, which is
you could make it a season.
So cool. Yeah. Absolutely. Like on the road with Be Real Babe and just do a show and like stop at everyone. That'd be so. One day we'll put it out there. We're manifesting it. We're gonna say the Be Real Babe goes on the show on the road. We get a trailer, the cats come, Babe comes, we go. But this is where I really like find very blessed because a lot of the people I connect with are American. And of course European and on the other side of the world too, not forgetting in my international friends. But this is why for me, this whole like Canada versus US is so hard because one, I've never been a part of that growing up. Like I've never had a divisional like thought of Canada. And I don't as an adult. So I thought this is cool because you've lived in both places. And so, I wanted to talk to you too about the experience of what that was like. So going back to when you're born, you says you're born baby Torva in Texas. That's where
Uh-huh.
life started?
Yeah, I was born in San Antonio,
Oh,
Texas.
cool. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. And how long there?
So I was there for 4 years. My dad, just background, my dad was
Mm,
in the military
mm,
for 22
that makes
years.
sense. Okay.
So I was a born an Air Force brat.
Ah,
We lived in San Antonio for the first 4 years of my life, and
cool.
then moved around here, there, and everywhere. And I ended up coming back here when I was turning 13. I was just about to turn 13.
Okay.
So I spent my core teen years in San Antonio.
Oh, okay. So you started there, went traveled, and what's that like? I'm that is not a familiar thing here in Canada. I'm sure for me, like when we had parents that left, it was like logging truck drivers, fishermen.
Yeah,
It wasn't very. There was not a very army driven life, so I'm very ignorant to that. What was that
yeah.
moving around like? Is that every couple months, once a year?
Oh no, it was every
Depends.
few years.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was like, my first 4 years in San Antonio, then we did 3 years in Germany, which was really cool.
Whoa, that's so cool.
Yeah. And then we did 3 or 4 years in the DC, Washington, DC area,
Okay. Okay.
like in Northern Virginia.
Yeah.
And then we did Australia for 2 years. That was kind of
How are the
cool. Like it
spiders?
was, yes, they're definitely
That's the only
big,
reason why I won't
hairy,
go.
ugly, mean, nasty spider. I'm like really afraid of poisonous spiders and pretty much every snake. I don't care what kind of snake it is. Like garter snakes make me jump.
I
I don't
agree.
like snakes.
No, no, I don't
And
like them.
living in Australia, I think is part of the reason. And living in Texas is another, like we have a pamphlet,
I see
Snakes of
that.
North Texas, and is like
You have to watch the
25
toilets.
different snakes. Mm-mm. No,
I don't
no,
blame
no,
you. So just
no,
have like
no.
a bat with you at all times.
My first night here, our first night here, we were we were going into the hotel from the U-Haul and all of that, right? And so we like unloaded the stuff out of the car, and I heard like this weird, it almost sounded like claws or something on the pavement. And I was like, okay, is that a lizard? And I looked out, and it's kind of dark, so you couldn't really see what it was. And this thing is kind of like moving in this weird, like diagonal pattern across the pavement, like at the end of the driveway for the hotel. And I was like, oh, is that a lizard? And Donovan was going to go check it out. Thankfully, he didn't. And so we get the stuff over there. He's waiting with the stuff. And I'm like, okay, I'll go move this truck because I have to move it to go park it. And I get in the truck, and I kind of, so I had to naturally like drive over to where that thing was. And my headlights hit it, and it was a rattlesnake. And I was like, I have never, ever, 11 years of living in Texas, never seen a rattlesnake before. So I was like, mofo, you're lucky you're crouched against the curb because I can't squish you.
Yeah, I get come at you.
Yeah, yeah, I was
Not a
like,
fan.
in my mind that meant something. I'm not really sure what yet, but
No,
rattlesnakes are positive omens in,
in
for like Native
cultures.
cultures.
Yeah,
So,
for
okay,
sure.
well, I'll take it that way.
Yeah, it's positive as long as it doesn't bite me. Like I'm like exist, just please don't hurt me, and I'll do everything and not to
Yeah,
hurt you. You exist. I don't want to like I struggle killing flies. I don't want to hurt creatures. Just please don't hurt me. That's all. That's what's alarming, right? But it's like,
yeah,
oh
yeah.
yeah, I would struggle with that one, and that is something like here. That's a very difference of different. Like yes, of course we have animals up here. We have snakes. We have spiders. Like we have pretty deadly spiders, but they're not like size of house cats like in Australia. Like there's
Never seen
definitely
one that big.
no, but you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
compared to
yeah,
here, right? Like we have a black widow, which is really deadly, which is very, very small, right? We have
yeah.
like the wolf spiders that are really bad, but we don't have like
Mhm.
the ones where people say they can hear them like walking up at the wall. Like that is
Well,
not a
oh,
real
no.
reality here. Like, but I lived in like on the island in Port in a very dingy part of the island. There's lots of spiders, lots of like creepy things, but like there's
Mhm.
not as common as like we have to watch our pipes because there's snakes in them like you do in Texas. That is a very very different. I feel like all the states too,
Yes.
like oh yeah, I had a girlfriend that lives in the states that she said that they sometimes where she's from, there was snakes coming up that come up the drain pipe.
Well, hopefully that doesn't happen in a new house. I'm gonna go
Yeah,
with that.
maybe if she's in an older house, absolutely. Yeah, I think she just said because the plumbing system's a little bit different than it is in Canada. I'm not sure, but I'm sure maybe. No, just look. Just always look before you sit. That's all. That's all. Just look before you sit. It's just make it a habit. But terrify you. So okay, so you grew up in Texas. So would you outside of so DC is in West Virginia. So that's not to
No,
be
it's
like
Virginia, regular Virginia.
regular
Yeah,
Virginia. Okay, but that's
not
different
West
from
Virginia.
DC. That's
Yeah,
different from
so
Washington DC and Seattle. Or wait,
which
like help me out.
Washington State, yeah, is in Northwest, and then Washington D.C. is the capital city of America, and it sits between Maryland and Virginia, like
Okay.
on the coast, close to the
Okay.
coast.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then so how did you so
So
then
then, yeah,
you
we went there to Australia,
yeah,
and then from Australia to San Antonio.
and
Um,
you're a teen again.
yeah, so I was there from 12 to 16.
Okay. Can you
Um,
drive then at 16?
I got my driver's license the day I turned
Nice.
16.
Nice.
Yeah.
So how does it work there? I'm sure it's changed, but back then, did you have like an L and N like we had, or was it just like
No. Oh God, no, 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 none of that. No. So when you're 15 and a half, you can get your learner's permit.
okay?
And I got my learner's permit when I was 15 and a half, learned how to drive, took driving lessons and all that, which are not mandatory, by the
Hmm.
way. They're just
Oh,
helpful.
ideas,
Like you can get your learner's
suggestions.
permit and have your parent teach you how to drive, and that's
Okay.
it. And then 16, if you pass the tests, oops, sorry, somebody's
That's
mowing outside, and I just heard a crunch. But anyway, anyway,
Uh,
um, what was I saying?
you got your learners at 15 and a half, and then
Yeah,
you went and you got your so
yeah,
you just
you
have to
get
do a
your
driving
driver's
test.
license at 16, and you can do it like you could just like your driver's license at 16 is the same as mine at 44. There's
Interesting.
no graduation. It's
Okay,
just
and so and sorry not to ask this question because women hate this, but what year were you born in?
1980.
Okay, yeah. So I was 86. So in comparison, that's not too far. So when
Yeah,
I went to go get my license in BC, Canada, and on the island, it was just when the L and N program was just being born. I was very blessed that that program just came out as I was about to go get my license, and before it wasn't like that. Like I think it was the same thing. Like you had a learners for a little bit after you've written your test, you drive a little bit, and then you do your class
yeah,
5, and then you've got your class 5, and that was fine. No. The year that I decided to turn, not like I had a choice, decided to turn 16. That's when this program came in, and I don't think it's necessarily bad because I think some people some kids really do need to have more time. I was definitely one of those kids that could have used more time. I got in a few accidents and I wasn't a
oh
confident
my,
driver. Yeah. And I do
yeah,
think that attributes to that, but it was just so crazy of like how strict it was. And then you had this big L. So everyone knew you're a learner driver as if that didn't
yeah,
make you stressed out. And then you had to wait and then you had to take your N. And then after your N program, then you get your class 5, which is, I'm sure, very similar to how they have it, but there was just like graduated program. And like,
yeah.
I think it's good, but it's like every step you have to pay money, all that kind of stuff. They can fail you.
Yeah.
You have to do,
It's such a racket.
it is. And it's just like, I don't know, but I do think a
I
blend of
think
the both would be
if you're
nice.
if you're like I think it's mature to be like, okay,
Yeah,
I need some more help
yeah,
driving.
totally.
You can take driver's license.
Hmm.
Like you don't, or defensive driving. Like you don't
Totally.
have to have this program. Like this is, I think this is going to be a core piece of the conversation is like, I feel like Canada really robs you of that personal responsibility, and
Yes.
they make those decisions for you.
Yeah.
Whereas in America, I think that shit doesn't fly.
No.
Americans are very much about personal responsibility. Well,
Yeah. Independence.
in its core,
Yeah.
yes. I
Yeah.
mean, there's obviously some shifting away from that, but
Of course.
not
Of
here
course.
in Texas.
No, definitely not.
Yeah,
But no, I
yeah,
think it's true. And I think a lot of it too, and to the core of it, is just like, unfortunately, we've bred this society in Canada where it's like we just want to be handed answers so that we don't have responsibilities. Like,
mhm,
well, the government said to do, and we've seen that over the pandemic. We've seen that, through
yeah,
all of that. But it goes
yeah,
right back to all of these little things when you look at the core of like even the driving programs, even this. It's like there's so many social programs to make sure that these are in place, that people are following laws and following their so. And it's just like, oh my gosh, like if we had maybe less of that red tape, less of that regulation, and just let like held people responsible for things, because we don't do that here anyways. When people do something wrong, we let them out after they beat women by the
right,
seawall in Vancouver.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
there's just
exactly,
there's too much like outside wanting people to take the responsibility like the government, but then when somebody does bad stuff, it's like the government wants no responsibility for it. And I hate that.
yeah,
That's what it feels like. And I feel like it's a bit different
yeah,
in the States for that.
yeah. Yeah, it's like it's to me. I just look at it all kind of on this continuum of like you don't have to have personal accountability
Hmm.
in Canada,
No, you
like,
don't.
and you also don't get to have personal responsibility in a
No,
lot of ways. Like you don't get to make decisions like
no.
getting a second opinion for your healthcare, or going somewhere else because the place that you're trying to get your doctor's appointment or your surgery or whatever is booked
Yeah, yeah.
solid for
Or
like
all
2
the regulations to get through stuff. Like you guys have the FDA, obviously, and yeah, there's a
yeah,
bunch of stuff, but I feel like it's more
yeah,
red taped in Canada than it is in the States.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, it depends. I think
Fair.
so. There are those that would argue that America is really not that free, and I would say, yeah. But if you can say that out loud, then you're doing better than many countries. So
100%. If you can criticize the government, and like
yeah,
we still can in Canada for now, for the most part, depending on what algorithm you get
I'm
on.
just I'm just gonna say, yeah, convoy,
Yeah, 100%, 100%. We didn't see
convoy.
that in the States, right? And like,
Yeah,
I was just saying today, the fucking guy that really pushed for all of that during the convoy is like Carney's like right hand man. He sounds like he's stepping down in the summertime, after the summertime. But those things matter. And I think like, yes, in the States, you guys focus on politics and it's good to focus on policy, but I feel like they don't infringe on your personal rights and independence to make choices for your individual families, where it does in Canada, where the stuff is coming down that it's like, oh, well, we don't like what supplements do, so we're banning all of it and fucking everybody. Like, I just
yeah.
don't
If
feel
you were
like
to
the
talk about
States do that.
supplements and that sort of thing, like it's way more restricted
Mm-hmm.
in Canada.
Yeah, exactly.
To me, it doesn't really make sense from a policy standpoint either. I mean, one of the things they restrict is vitamin D.
Yeah.
Like, who doesn't need that in Canada?
Who does?
Seriously. Like,
Over dark for how long of the year?
and I mean, yes, you can get vitamin D, but the amount
Mm-hmm.
that you can get is restricted.
Yes, especially
Well,
with the haze.
so-
I mean,
yeah. What?
especially with the hazing that's going on lately, all that haze around the sun.
Oh yeah,
in the
yeah,
skies.
that's all natural. Nothing to see here.
So much clouds. But it's
Oh,
true though. And we get
yeah.
a less of it, right? And so it's just like things like that where it's like maybe down in the States and especially in the like southern, maybe you guys don't need as much supplementation because like you said, you get it naturally. But up here in Canada, we're a different part of the world. We don't get it as much, right? Especially if you're in like cloudy places sometimes like Vancouver Island and Port Alberni where it's like cloudy 90% of the year, and so it's like those things being banned is weird. And I feel like you guys just have more choices to choose what's best for your families and your individual selves down in the States versus in Canada. And that's again where we're given more personal responsibility down there to choose for yourself. And up here, it's just like, oh, well, the government says I can't take that or do that's bad. I must get Western pharmaceuticals. I must follow what the government said is right. And it's like
that, and that's what doesn't really fly here, I think. So there are people that are, I mean, obviously you look at the pandemic and you see there was a lot of compliance, but there was also a lot of people that were like, that have like completely come out of their middle ground and come over to, to the side of like being way more libertarian because they were like, no, the government doesn't get to tell me that kind of shit.
Yes. Yeah.
And that is more of the, I think if you give countries personalities, that's more the personality of America on the whole. Not again, I'm not saying it's everybody. Obviously, it's not. There are people that want the government to step in and
do everything,
and hold their hand, and make them safe and whatever. But
it doesn't one size fit all, though. I think that's the thing that bothers me with that perspective. Is that there's not a one size fit all, and that's why I don't think the government should be dictating. I think it should be sporting several options. So that's, what's best, because there's no body in the world that's going to be able to know what your individual family needs than you do.
I don't even think it's the government's job to provide options. I think it's the government's job to maybe oversee some aspect of safety related to whatever these options are.
Yeah.
But the more government gets involved, the more problems we have, and the more control they have, and the less control we have, and the more like it's get out.
It's more dehumanizing when the government gets involved. It becomes more policy and like you fall into this group or that group, right? And it gets very, and I think we've seen that in Canada over the last, like, let's say 10 years. More things get like the little things that people think, oh, it's not a big deal. Let's, for example, maids, which is something obviously, which is very important to you in your world and the people around you, because people with obviously cancer diagnosis are on nauseam being offered this program where it's like in the States, that's just a counter, like, and again, okay, that's so great that we do have some options for people that are on quote unquote track one that are inevitable to die, end of life. I understand the need for services of that. We've talked about that. But for people like yourself and people around where it's just like maybe your first cancer diagnosis and be like, oh, well, the way Canada's healthcare system is, you could offer this. It's like, what are we talking about?
That's completely unethical. And So yeah, I think that's a crux of an issue with government involvement in
Exactly.
programs like that is
Exactly.
nobody expects the government to act ethically, really. Like there's no ethical standard. If the government tends to be the body that ensures companies act ethically, then who the hell is making the government act ethically?
100%.
And then they get to just kind of say things like, oh well, we don't have the money to expand the programs. But it's to me it's extremely unethical. Like it raises serious questions of morality for a government to say we can't treat everybody. There's these long waiting lists, but we can offer you death because you're probably not going to get treatment in time. Your condition's going to worsen. But hey, when that does happen, like here's this out, or you could just take it now.
Yeah.
It's like they're cleaning their waiting lists off by offering people an early death that when instead of treatment, like that's abhorrent. Like that's criminal.
100%.
I don't have another word to describe it.
It's eugenics, in my opinion. No, like,
Yeah.
Isn't that a form of it? Like, and I get
Absolutely.
but wrapped up again in this weird compassion where I feel like that's where progression has swung. Like so many people would say, and I'm sure you see down in the States. And I think if anything, one big thing growing up, I feel like I want to ask too is like politics are like, I think a big thing in American culture. Like that is like a lot of people definitely have that as more of an identity versus Canadians, right? But I think now Canadians are becoming more political and more because of the policies and the shift.
Yeah, we witnessed that. Being kind of from, and when we were part of it too, because when we kind of came up there, we're just like, yeah, Canadian politics are boring.
100%. Yeah, and also we're like, let's do what the States do. Yeah,
and it was like, oh
my God,
wake up, pay attention.
100%. But before, like growing up, like politics, even in my 20s, and I was young, but I'd still like know stuff. I feel like for the most part, like I wasn't, but I never wanted to watch the news, which I feel very blessed. I was like, oh, this shit is so depressing. I'm never watching it. Like never watched the news. That was never something I grew up with. Never really grew up with politics or like understanding patriotism or like being happy about like, and I learned the typical stuff about our history, but like, I feel like the States, you guys are definitely more raised with more patriotism, like loving your country, knowing the history of it, where Canada was, I feel like, we just didn't. It wasn't about being involved. Like we learned a little bit about government, but it wasn't like I really had to deep dive as an adult to remember what the fuck, like how does our government even work? Like what, how I'd vote in my 20s, but I wasn't understanding until the pandemic. And I was like, oh fuck, it really does matter who I'm voting for, because I never voted for Trudeau. But when he told me that I didn't deserve to be on a plane around other people and I couldn't go to weddings or funerals or leave the country, I couldn't go to the gym, I couldn't go to the restaurant, I was like a criminal and I had to sit at home, all because I personally was going through fertility issues and I just didn't want to add anything to my body, let alone something I didn't have informed consent on personally. That's when I was like, wow, this politics really do matter. And unfortunately it became my identity for a bit because I felt so fucked by it. And I was like, now I understand why I started watching American politics first.
Through that though, when you wake up politically, like when you start paying attention politically, like I think everybody goes through that phase of like, it's like their personality for a minute, because you're just like, oh my God, did you know?
Yes.
And you want everyone to
shocking.
know. You want everyone to it's shocking. Absolutely.
You feel damned, like you got fucked, like someone's in this big secret that you didn't know about and you're just like, I have to tell everybody. And I was stuck in the house.
Yeah. I had experience like that. I was I was 21. I just turned 21 when 9/11 happened. I was in the military.
I want to talk to you about that. Yeah.
In the military. And and I started like reading the conspiracy theories, and they were starting to like click with me, like some shit's not right here. And so I'm like waking up to this while I'm in the military, and like commander in chief is the president. Right. So and you can't criticize the president as a being in the military. So yeah, it was really an interesting time for me. I felt like, when I got out of the military 3-4 years later, I was like, I kind of like wanted to leave that aspect of myself behind, because I felt like such a cog in this neoconservative like war machine. Yeah, that's fair. And that's why I wanted to ask you too, when I want to talk about, apologies for having it completely wrong. I'm just like, she did something with there, now she's a veteran, which I also want to talk about how they treat veterans in Canada versus the States as well. But with that, like, I think you're 6 years,
6 years older than me roughly. And it's just like, I was in high school, like my mind blown as a Canadian watching this live while you were actually like live in the military, living and breathing that.
I was
That's
working that
crazy.
morning as an air traffic controller. I worked radar air traffic control
Where in the
at
world?
Shepherd Air Force Base, so Wichita Falls, Texas,
Okay.
2.5 hours from here. And it's one of the busiest Air Force bases because it does the training for the NATO pilots.
Okay. Wow.
And so we had just launched like a whole bunch of training missions that morning. Like they all go out like in this big cluster.
Yeah.
And I was working the radar that morning. And then when the FAA issued that, like they said, all planes need to land right now. And so like we just had this influx of planes, and I was like really busy, like landing planes for like an hour or so. And then it was quiet. It was like, we had to watch the scopes for like the rest of the day, and it was just dead quiet.
It's like the
Obviously,
first day.
yeah.
Yeah. That's a whole world shut down that day. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like everyone just like quieted. And I imagine it's just like, I remember during the pandemic when I'd have to go to work because I worked with plants. So I had to go, excuse me, to site, and like everything was dead. I just amounted to that where it's just silence. And you're like, did I just go through a ghost town? Imagine that's probably what it felt like at that time. And how long were you in the military until that happened? Like what was your experience before that? Like I'm just so dumb. Like, did you fly planes? Did you shoot guns? Like what was that like up until then?
You do shoot like to train.
Like through training and stuff?
That's it. Like I did it for training. I got into the military in 1999 when Bill Clinton was still the president.
Oh, okay. Excellent. So you got to watch him and the whole Monica thing.
That was like 2 months before the election.
Wow. Okay.
And then, boom. Welcome to a different reality.
So what was that like? Because I'm ignorant. So Bill Clinton was in, and then who was in after? Is that Obama?
George Bush.
Oh, George Bush. Okay. Not Obama yet. He was after.
Bush. Yeah.
Bush, and he was a war guy.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Exactly. So I mean, you went from like these, the peaceful. I would almost characterize it as goofy,
politics
of Bill Clinton.
And sorry, is he a Republican? Or is he a Republican or Democrat?
He's a Democrat. Bill Clinton is a Democrat. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
It's Hillary's husband. I don't know if you know.
Right, duh. Okay, yeah. Make the comparison. Okay. My bad. Sorry, Canadian here.
Right, and so, I was kind of tuned out from politics at the time. Like, okay, everybody made a big deal about the whole Monica Lewinsky thing, and I was just kind of like, whatever. Like,
it's not uncommon for men to do shit.
A blowjob in the office.
Like, honestly. Exactly. Like, they're real people too, although not great. Like, you should have some sort of professionalism, but I mean, whatever. It's a game. It's a show anyway.
Yeah. So, and then that was 99. I got in, and so I had been in for just around 2 years when 9/11 happened.
Jeez.
And then I had another 4 years to go. So I did 6 years total.
Okay, and do you have to do a certain, like, is there a contract or like a tour or something?
It's usually 4 years. Mine was 6, so I signed up for 6. It was a special program they were doing at the time where I got a bonus, and I got to pick, like one of the jobs. If I picked like one of these jobs, and air traffic control seemed like a really, really great job. So
yeah, that's super interesting. And then so 9/11 happened, and then was there more stuff that you had to deal with after that, or was it pretty chill?
So weird. That day was so surreal because like I said, I mean, I was working, and then there's a crew of us like on duty at the time. I think there's about 30 of us, 20 to 30 of us, and one of the lead supervisors of the crew was going around asking people like, if we it's way premature, but if we deploy, are you willing to go? It was just asking everybody that like the day, an hour and a half after the Pentagon was attacked, he was asking those questions. I was just like, sure.
I don't know.
Yeah. And everybody like is just in this state of like, oh my fucking God.
Yeah. Like, is this World War III?
Like our world is about to change dramatically.
Yeah.
And I know people who got deployed, people that I worked with that were later deployed. And I can think of a couple that when they came back, they weren't the same. They were completely different people.
Yeah. And then after that, so then, sorry, just like, because I'm sorry to be ignorant, I was quite young at that time. So then it was Bush, and then Bush, who was after Bush? Was it Obama after Bush?
Bush did 8 years.
8 years, so he did 2 terms, because they can only do two terms, right? Yeah. Where there's another difference of Canada versus U.S. We don't have that limitation, which I believe it should, and I think Pierre Poilievre is going to push for that. Yes, I think you cannot. Like 2, maybe
Yeah.
3, but no more than 3.
10 years or whatever, 9 years of Trudeau was way too much.
Nasty, gnarly, should never happen.
Yeah,
So,
there
okay, so
needs.
then, okay, so Clinton for 2 years. Sorry, Clinton, how long was Clinton in? Was he just 1, 2 terms?
I think he was 2 terms.
Okay, so 2, we got 2, and then 2, and then Bush was a Republican?
Republican.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, so Republican for 2 years,
Obama.
and then Obama. But Obama was 2 years too.
No, he 2 terms.
He was just 2 terms?
8 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was 8 years.
Okay,
Yep.
interesting.
And then,
And he was Democrat.
yeah.
Okay. And then went to Trump,
Hmm?
and then Biden. Or,
Yeah.
well. So, okay, sorry. Just have to ask, can I please ask this as a friend, as an American? And I wish Joe Biden well. Like, no one should have a diagnosis like that. I'm not here to hate,
No.
not to shame or
Yeah.
anything. I really, truly wish him and his family the best. I'm sorry. But I guess I'm just unfamiliar, and I just think about a standard of what a president should be. And I think about people that get care like yourself, and someone that has a doctor, that her wife is a doctor. Do you find it odd, sorry to put you on the spot, that we're just now finding out about a stage 4 colon cancer diagnosis? Like, do you think that maybe there was something before, or like, or
Beyond odd. From what I've read, you don't get to it's pancreatic, or no,
was
sorry.
it pancreatic? I thought it was colon.
prostate.
Prostate. Sorry, I apologize. Yeah.
What
The
I've
butt
read,
area.
okay, so every guy gets a PSA test, prostate specific antigen,
Like, yeah, okay.
as part of their routine medical exam.
Yeah, I heard 40 is like the recommended time for you to start really looking at
Start
that.
getting that.
Yeah, as
Right.
just a general male, let alone
So
the
you
commander in
don't get
chief.
to stage 4 prostate cancer without that being elevated, like way fucking elevated, and you
Right.
don't get there overnight. It's like doctors
Metastasize.
are coming out publicly and saying like he's had it. He has to have had it for like quite a while.
Yeah,
So he
that's
would
what I
have got it when he was president. There's and now actually this just jumped in my head. Like I wonder if that was the reason why he stepped down from
I
running.
think so. Yeah. I
Nobody's
think
ever-
probably before. Yeah, I think before he probably would have known maybe, and I think like maybe it progressed then, and then I think it got out, yeah, or it was visible. Yeah, or it was very visible, like with the wording and his confusion and stuff like that, right? Like he was probably stressed too at that age. Like that's
likely though. So presidents are required to have a physical every year to demonstrate that they're mentally and physically capable of performing their job. They have nuclear codes in their hands. Like we want to make sure
they have the U.S. Army is the biggest army in the world on their fingertips, essentially.
Right. I mean, yeah, it's kind of a big job.
It's a big job, anyway, commander in chief. Yeah.
So somebody signed off on him being healthy and fit when he wasn't, and that's a problem. That's a big problem. Yeah. I think it's criminal.
And another comparison, because that's what we're doing here. So we look at presidents, like we were blown away. Like Trump's like almost 80 or something like that. And like Biden's like 82, I believe he was. So it's like, that's another comparison where the presidents are much older. I'd say by like almost 30, 40 years than Canadian prime ministers. Exception Mark Carney. Yeah.
The minimum age to be a president in America is 35.
Yeah. Like,
there's only been a couple of presidents that would be characterized as young, like John F. Kennedy, and I mean Barack Obama was pretty young,
but he did not look so when he got at the end of his presidency.
No, man, that progression from like day one or when he was running to like the day he left was like, whoa, you watch any other president, like you can see that like being an American president will age the hell out of you.
It's a pressure, and this is where like I'm all about criticism, and even with the prime ministers too, I do in my mind try to have grace because I can't imagine the pressure at that level sometimes. You know, like you got to be a certain amount of egotistical. You have to be like, you know what I mean? Even CEOs of big companies are always going to piss people off. Like there's a lot. So I imagine it's going to take a huge strain on your mental health and your physical health. So that's what I'm meaning is like, okay, most men at 40 should be getting that test. It's kind of normal in the States from what I've heard, even through Canada, to have that checked at that age. He is double that age. The commander-in-chief.
He's having a check. Like,
he's visibly sick. Like you could see that there's something was off.
I think someone was pulling the puppet strings the whole time.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
But
and that's no different in Canada. That's where we have commonality there. I don't really think the front runner is really the 100% a part of everything. That's just the bitch ass face we have to look at. Which now we went from like what are we doing here? Like when people, oh my God, there's some people thirst trapping Mark Carney, and I wanted to throw up a little bit, but Oh,
Please,
TikTok is a
no.
stupid place.
Please,
Yeah, no. No, and a lot of people were criticizing too because at the night that he won, he was dancing and stuff, and some people are like, hey, not to be this way, but we kind of were expecting like a more professional, more polished, like again, we can't say that's happening in the States right now, but like in Canada, that's what they were kind of hoping a little bit more for. Like, what is that? So I just thought that was kind of funny because I was like, I think that a lot of people are going to be shocked. He's a little bit
yeah,
of a
like,
dork, a dweeb.
okay, so I mean, okay, the guy dances. Like, look, I'm not saying he's a good
No,
guy because
no,
there's a number of issues with Mark Carney. Uh, why don't we stick to those and
that's
not
fair.
like,
That's fair.
like we I think
Little
we
things
just
like
really
that.
devalue ourselves when we
Yeah.
are like focused on that kind of shit. It's like,
Well, then
and
no
are
one's
we really, or is that the mainstream media?
that's what was bussing around. And
Okay,
I've,
so
yeah. And that's what
yeah,
I called out about too. Like there's a part where his wife said Canada fort and a lot of people heard Canada poor. And so then there was this like distribution. I was like, hey guys, like we got to be checking what we're saying too on all sides. That's not what she said. She said fort, which is strong in French. She has an accent. She's not French Canadian, so it's not going to sound the same. But like I heard her say fort right away. So
yeah,
it's like it's super important. But to your point, it's like, okay, how about we talk about how he said he was going to go against all this retaliatory tariffs, but then drop them April 11th before the election even happened.
yeah. How
Those are the
about
things
that?
that we should be criticizing about, you know? That's what I
Yeah,
think. I just think it's
I
funny
agree.
because it's like those little things where I totally agree are just like the little petty me. It's just like, yeah, like he's human too. He's going to get criticized for all those things too. You know what I mean? So like to me, I was just like, people would come at Pierre for little things like that. So for me, it was just
Uh-huh.
like interesting to see some of the petty. But again, why aren't we talking about the big things, which I'm actually seeing mainstream media criticizing Mark Carney more than I seen them criticize Trudeau so far,
Yeah,
which is
yeah,
interesting
good. I have.
because
I mean, I've been a little bit out of the news loop for a couple of weeks.
that is very fair. And now it's going to be switching, right? Because now you're, where it's like, obviously you care about Canada because your daughter's still here. You have
I
friends and
do. Well,
family,
I
right?
mean, yeah, look, I'm a citizen of Canada
Of
still,
course.
and so's my husband, and
Yeah.
like we do care about the country. We're in a new country now, and I'm a citizen of America too.
Mhm.
I can care about two countries, but
Yes, you
um,
absolutely can. I care
yeah.
about both too, and I'm just part of this one.
Well, here, that goes to the elbows up thing. The
Yes.
two countries are very, very intertwined.
Yes.
We have history that goes, way back to the 1800s.
Mhm.
Yes, we go beyond that with the French and Indian War, and I'm just going to kind of park it at the end of the 1812 war when we had a truce and a treaty and
Treaty.
all of that
Yeah.
stuff. Um, there are aspects of the tariff issue that have been buried, I think. So, like the whole thing about the way it's presented is like, okay, Canadian outrage because the American president wants to tariff
Yeah.
Canada.
Yeah.
Canada's tariffing America too. Like
100%.
this dairy,
Yeah.
da-
Like
dairy
100%
prices
or
in Canada
something.
are the way they are because they have high tariffs,
Mhm.
and it's prohibitive for America to import dairy products into Canada, and now the Canadian dairy industry has a fucking monopoly in Canada, and they can charge whatever they want.
Mm-hmm.
Fine, but the whole thing, like with the tariff on dairy in particular, like Trump was basically mimicking the Canadian tariff on
Yes.
dairy.
Retaliatory tariffs.
Exactly, which I'm not a fan of necessarily.
No.
I'm not economics
Yeah.
expert. I don't
Yeah.
fucking know,
Yeah.
and I don't want to know.
No.
I'm not going to go there. But my point is, these are things that were left out of the conversation. So my first opinion is that the media on both sides were stirring the pot like they
Oh,
do, faux outrage, and then I think the whole elbows up thing is fucking
it's
ridiculous.
so embarrassing, dude. And I'm always in the comment sections. And like I said, being a Canadian that loves America, loves Americans, I have so many friends and listeners there. Like, it's not all Canadians. It just makes me a little bit sad because it's like you guys fell for it. You said you weren't going to do this again in the divide through the pandemic. And
At
the
all,
minute
yeah,
it happened, it fucking did it again. Like, are you
yeah.
kidding me? What are you doing?
My favorite, yeah, like somebody was going on one of the local Facebook pages
Mhm.
in Cattle River about, don't shop at Walmart because,
Shut the
it's an
fuck up.
American company. And then somebody else was like, look, those are our local family
Employees.
members that are working there. There's Canadian products that are being sold there. Like, this is illogical what you're saying. Like,
Yes.
the franchise is owned by a local
Canadian.
person, or Canadian anyway company. Like, this is ridiculous. And it is like we're enmeshed, like it or not, we are enmeshed, and you can't elbows up or shop only Canadian. What you're really shopping is Chinese.
Well, and there's no problems on that when there was a tons of tariffs that were put on in Canada through China.
Yeah,
There's no outrage for that because the media
right.
didn't tell you to be outraged about it. They wanted to be able to prop up Mark Carney, and they wanted something. You know what's interesting though?
Yeah.
Elbows Up started with Trudeau. That's where people forget, and they
Yeah.
can get brainwashed to being like, I hate Trudeau. I hate everything he stands for. He was the first fucking person that said elbows up through all this, because when he stepped down in that in between before Mark Carney stepped in, he was speaking those things, and it was hockey season, and that's when everyone was doing the elbows up, and that's where it originated. And then Mark Carney turned that into his identity when they seen that the boomers, let's say for the most part, not all, but for the most part, and some like maybe younger, Gen Alpha that are like just voting now, that don't like, that have parents, whatever, and they're all about the liberal.
Yeah.
Aren't they just going up? What's the next one for that? Gen X?
Is
that the
2013?
one?
I think Alpha starts in 2013.
I don't know. Okay, what's the one after Gen Z? The
Gen
one
Z.
after me. The one after millennials. Yes. I feel like they also are very still liberal because it's like your early 20s. Sorry, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm so terrible. I'm not millennial, and that's all I know.
Okay, but there are at least in America,
there's changing.
Gen Z is becoming more conservative. It's like
now,
they were a top supporter of Trump.
For sure now, but I feel like up here we're not down there yet. Canada's always a little bit behind, right? So I did see like a conservative effort of them this year coming out for conservative, but they're still got a hold on that liberal because you're in your 20s.
I think it's the older Zs. Like the newer Zs are still like, going to college and eating the
but
socialist
there's some
propaganda.
fucking bad millennials that are just like held right on to that liberal, like, I can't be conservative. I can't be viewed as conservative because if I am, then I'm anti-abortion. And I think that's something that Canadians have adopted from the States politics. It's like, not that way, but sometimes I feel like American politics is more like you're a Republican, so therefore you're where those lines are starting to blur. But I feel like back in the day, it was very like you were a registered Republican or a Democrat, you meant this. But I feel like that's more fluid now than ever, where Canada started becoming more rigid. It's like, oh, if you're conservative, then you're all for Jesus and you're against like abortion and you don't want social programs. And it's like, what? Yeah. You're racist. You're like, I just said to take a pause on immigration. I never said get rid of it. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. I mean, people will find anything to try to upset the apple cart and make you question yourself.
Good point.
It's like you can't form your identity around that, like trying to avoid that because you'll get nowhere.
Yeah, because I don't know. I think labels stress me out more. Like, oh yeah, I voted conservative, but that doesn't mean that every single conservative value I know, right? It's so, and like, I will stand proudly, and I was even standing proud, like supporting Trump back in the day too, because I was like, I don't like a lot of the shit that he says and does. I agree, but I really don't like where the pendulum has swung on the other side. And we do need a radical switch to the other side so that maybe at some point we can come in the middle. And that's where I think I want to see Canada and hope that I'm seeing the States. But I'm really grateful for American politics. It actually was able for me to digest then Canadian politics after. Like, I was really grateful for the Trump Biden era in 2020 because it really opened my eyes to being like, oof, like Canada always follows the States. This is where we're going to be in this divide in a couple years. And sure as shit, that was this election here where Canadians were getting more vile, more angry, more divisive during any political thing that I have seen so far.
But I think that the divisiveness and the anger is necessary part of the growth. Like, in order for Canada to shake off that, like, everybody be compliant nonsense and let the government fix everything, and there has to be that kind of almost a
crash out.
I don't want to call it like a revolution because I mean we're not like taking up arms or anything, but there has to be a massive shift in
the paradigm.
And I think that comes with the anger and the division. Like, you have to have the dismantling. It's like the tower card in tarot. Like, you have to have the shit fall apart.
Yeah.
Somewhat so that you can rebuild it. And
Yeah.
I'm, again, not calling for violence or
No,
revolution or
no,
anarchy or any of that
no,
shit.
no violence, none of that. It can be done with words and coming together too. And that's such a good point. And I think we're both in that spot
Yeah.
in our journey. Like, Mom, you through your cancer journey and going through that, myself with like the pandemic and the like
Yeah.
unvaccinated part, where we were angry, where we had those phases. Like when I started the podcast, I was very angry and very
Yeah.
felt divided by everyone. Like, I don't want to talk to vaccinated people. They all hate me. If you're vaccinated, you automatically hate me. If you're a doctor, you automatically are going to disable me because I'm, and then I had a lot of
Yeah.
anger. And now I'm at the point where I'm just really healed from that and healing and want to be seeing that for others. And I want to help people. And I'm sure you feel that way through that
Yeah.
anger to the other side, because on the other side, we can then come together a little bit more. And I'm really hoping that you said that maybe this America versus Canada, we can really see where we do rely on each other, where there is a beautiful relationship, where we see that, but a lot of people maybe don't. And they have to maybe feel a little bit of the harm and the dismantling a little bit more to see that and be a little bit more angry
Yeah.
to come out on the other side.
I think so. I think that's going to help, because I think that there is, in some ways, maybe not a healthy interdependence,
Yes. Good point.
like military wise, for example. Canada is very reliant on America for defense.
That's what I'm trying to say.
And no, that's okay. That is what it is. I'm not saying it's bad, but it's not necessarily good for the identity of Canada.
Mm-mm.
And if you're putting yourself in the shoes of like having to be reliant on another country for your security, well, you're going to have to ride that storm up and down.
You're putting
right?
yourself in a vulnerable position potentially.
You really are. Yeah, you really are. Now, that's a choice you can make, but do you really want to go elbows? Like, how high up do you think you're going to put those elbows? You're
Not
not.
with a gun.
And neither is your government. Your government is not going to turn around and be like, well, bully you. Of
What
course,
do we have?
The tariffs and everything. Like, he's going to capitulate because Canada's defense relies on him,
Yes.
America.
Yes.
So it was all a bunch of fucking pony show to begin with.
And that's not what I wanted. I just wanted us to come together. Yeah, it was just like, I don't want to fight Trump. He is running the free world. Whether anybody wants to be mad or not, he was elected. Okay, it was a win. It wasn't a steal. It was what most Americans wanted. Just deal with it and work together. And he is a businessman. I feel like at the end of the day, anybody can call him what he wants, but he's a businessman, and you see that because look at how many people caved to the tariffs. Yes, is that hurting some Americans? And I'm not fully going to get into it because I'm not Canadian, but I do see that it did make something shake up. It did make things change. Hey man, I jumped into the NASDAQ. I'm all in the investments now, and I've made money since like I bought at the dip, and it has continually risen. I have made money off of all of that. I've seen an increase in my money. I know, it's crazy. It's just the first time I decided, I'm like, I'm going in. But it made things move, whether people agree or not. That's not the conversation. It's that it made people come to the table. It made Canada come to the table, and he got what he wanted. And I just wanted a leader that was going to do what was best for Canada. And I just don't feel like, for me personally, Carney was going to be the person, but I am very happy to sit back and criticize, and that's nothing but content for me.
Yeah. You go and you look at like how buddy they were in the White House meeting. It was kind of like, okay.
He's fangirling him. That's almost.
Very interesting.
Yeah, it's like I would be too, but like not really, but you know what I mean? Like I'd be a little bit starstruck, but you're supposed to be holding your own there. And I just didn't see that personally, but I'm interested to see. I hope I'm fucking wrong about him. I hope he lied to the liberal Canadians, no offense, and he's going to do more business stuff that's actually going to bring stuff to Canada in the energy sector. I doubt it, but I'm always going to be hopeful. But if not, it'll be interesting to see all this, like you said, the chaos has to come out, the anger. We're seeing that from the West. We're seeing it from Alberta with the separatism and stuff, right? Like it affects my home. Like this attack on the energy sector affects my home, my dinner plate, because my man works in the oil field. So that affects me, what happens in Alberta, right? So this is why I think we're more political than we ever have been, because it is affecting our home, like not being able to buy a home. So let's go through a couple more, like Canada versus the States. So like if we're talking, like let's talk about home affordability. I'd say before, Canada would be more affordable for home dial back like 10, 15 years. I think it is swapped. I think now it is much more affordable to live in the States, housing wise. Is that a fair?
I would agree. It depends on what state you're in. That's one thing that we really just observed on our trip from, Washington State down to Texas, like the going out to eat and, every state is just really, really different in that respect. And a lot of that comes down to their tax policies, their social
Social programs.
social systems and programs.
Yeah.
Washington is very liberal, has a lot of social programs,
Mhm.
takes a lot of taxes, blah, blah, blah. And what's interesting to me is the states that tend to have more social programs, more liberal, they're not as favorable to veterans.
Interesting.
It's really interesting. It's
That
like,
is interesting.
yeah, it's almost like, I don't, it's like the more liberal states tend to just kind of say fuck off to
They kind of
veterans.
care about the younger, like the kids generation, focus on like kids, like
They,
like schooling
yeah,
programs and all that, and like younger people
children,
versus later.
families, like single
Yeah.
moms, which I think fine,
Of course.
I was a single mom and I relied on social programs.
But you're more capable. Don't come at me. I feel like sometimes you're more capable even if you have a child than if you're a veteran that's can't work
Disabled.
because you lost your disabled. Yeah, you can't use your legs or whatever the reason that you are. Like it's harder
Right.
for you to get a job. Whereas like a full babe
Yeah.
mom can have like help on a little bit on like babysitting, but can still be able bodied to work. Not everyone. Don't come at me, but you know what I'm saying.
Right. Yeah. I mean, look, like in Texas, 100% service connected disabled veteran gets no property tax. You don't have to pay
Wow,
property tax.
that's
In
incredible.
other states like Washington, they will deduct like no property tax off like the first $50,000 value of your home. Well, what home in Washington
It's just
is
worth
worth
it.
$50,000? Like you're looking at 600,000. Like home values are twice what they are in Texas almost.
Crazy.
So it's, and it's a huge disparity. And that's
Yeah,
one of the reasons we picked Texas. Absolutely.
yeah,
Yes, that's
yeah.
what,
Cost
because we are
affordable.
so friendly to veterans
Yeah,
and we need that. I
yeah,
need that. We both do, right?
yeah,
Our family needs that because I am disabled now
yeah, yeah.
with the cancer. So
Absolutely, yeah. So, and too, that's a good point. And I think it's kind of the same in Canada. If you were to look at like Vancouver, Victoria, Toronto, I think, Calgary, at like the big cities, they definitely cost more money versus if you're going to move in
yeah,
like Manitoba or out to Newfoundland on the coast,
right.
where
Yeah,
there's
absolutely. The
the
provinces,
more
it's right.
extremes.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So
But I'd say overall, Canada versus US, I'd say it's
yeah,
even at the
I would
height,
too.
it'd be more affordable in the States housing wise.
Yeah.
And then
We have
food
more
and,
options in the
yeah,
States for
yeah,
affordability.
and then food. I feel like across the board again,
Oh,
the states. Like I watched you guys post your breakfast, and I was like, we barely get that for $15 Canadian, which would be
yeah,
like probably more like 20 something dollars American, and you guys are getting
yeah.
it for like 273 or something stupid.
The food, which I don't, yeah, like, okay, yeah, going
Was
out
it
to breakfast.
breakfast? Yeah,
Right. Yeah. That was a breakfast bar, right?
fair.
So it was
Okay,
like,
buffet.
by weight.
Okay.
But yeah, it was ridiculous. It was like, a whole plate of food for $5.
Mm-hmm.
We went out to a couple of diners and stuff while we were on a road. That was tended to be one of the food that we get like every day.
Yeah,
We'd do breakfast, like a late breakfast. And the price just kept going down because we went further east and south.
that's so
And
funny.
our first breakfast in Texas was like $25 for two of us.
That's
And
crazy.
look, Donovan, I love him. He eats a lot.
Yeah, some men are just gorillas. I'm like, how do
Right?
you
I mean,
put
we're
that
talking like
away?
full breakfast, like
Yeah,
bacon, sausage, eggs,
yeah,
potatoes,
yeah.
coffee, $25
That's
for the two of
amazing.
us.
That's crazy. And that just doesn't happen.
Yeah,
We went to a cheaper place. It was $42. We didn't get anything fancy. And I was just like, this
yeah,
hurts. Like, it's now like going out for breakfast is like something we do as a treat now, not something that we can
yeah.
afford to do every, well, okay, not afford, but that's not what we're prioritizing because we are concerned about things costing more money. So we're like, okay, should we do this all the time? Probably not. We could probably
Not
make this at
right.
home a little bit cheaper, where before it was like almost comparable, if not sometimes a little bit cheaper to, I don't know. It's crazy with the
And
grocery prices up here.
we're still going in grocery stores now. I mean, we've been down here, 10 days
Mhm.
in Texas. We're still going into grocery stores going like, oh my God, look how much this is. Like
Just blown away.
organic raspberries for $3. I think it was like $3.96, maybe, yeah, for a pint of organic raspberries.
That's
Um,
crazy.
and
Strawberries just came down to
abundance,
$3,
the
like the
abundance,
tiny
and
ones.
okay, I was just having this conversation
Yeah.
with my friend in Nicaragua,
Oh,
who's a
cool.
Canadian expat
Yeah.
living in Nicaragua, like living her best life there. And we were talking about the food, and I was like, avocados. I have been starved for avocados for 9 years living in Canada.
So
I love avocados, and it is so hard to get a ripe avocado or get an avocado that ripens properly
Yeah.
in Canada.
Yes.
I have never, ever, ever had one that was like
Perfect. Yes.
Right? It's either like, ew, it's half rotten, but I can scoop out some of the green parts.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're paying like, what, $3 an avocado or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So
Avocado tax.
Avocado, organic. Oh my God. So I'm buying and eating avocados like every day right now.
Love that. And it's so good for you too. It's like everything that's good for us is so expensive. And again, like, and two, I don't know, and here too, that's like the trade provincially too, right? Holds things back to being able to, you know, be able to fund all across Canada. Like there's always so much. And can you guess who's in charge of provincial affairs in Canada in Mark Carney's cabinet? Can you guess our favorite MP?
No, I don't know.
Chrystia Freeland.
Shut up.
And she said, and I quote, that interprovincial trade is sexy right now. So she is very looking forward to being the leader in that. I wanted to throw my phone so fucking hard against the wall, let me tell you. I just want that fucking, oh my God, I couldn't. So equally, let's talk about, she definitely is in there. And she's not the finance person, thank goodness, I guess, but she's still then, I mean, interprovincial, like that's still a huge thing. Like I'm glad to see that with like the elbows up crowd and like warding off the US products, that has opened up conversations, because there should be more interprovincial trade. There should be no regulation. There should be no taxes. There should be no extra anything. We should be able to trade across Canada without issues. Yeah, exactly.
Especially when you consider that, like, you know, Canada will do that equalization tax.
Exactly.
How can you do that? And then you're putting all these that's again to my point of government overreach, like too much government, not good, creating problems. Fuck off, stop it.
And what's super interesting, one thing too, I will say, okay, and we don't have to get into the logistics of it, but in Canada now, I don't know if you know this, because again, very fair that you're not, but Mark Carney actually cut, which I will give him props for, 11 MPs out of the cabinet. So Trudeau had 39 and Mark Carney now has 28. Interesting though, that when they turn around to American politics and we look at Doge and the cuts that, and again, I'm not saying all of them, don't come from Americans, but I'm saying like the Liberals in Canada like to criticize the same as Democrats in the States, I feel, for the most part. Where is the outrage of the cutbacks of the government workers? And that's 11 in the decision makers, but then they hate on Trump and Elon again, maybe a bit degree, but I found that was a really interesting place of like criticism that was not being mimicked in Canada versus the States.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It sounds like it.
Right?
Yeah.
And we need a Doge, but maybe not as intense, but something to definitely look at government's misspend. That's what I think up here for sure.
Oh, totally. Yeah, absolutely. There's like, not enough transparency.
No, and they're shut right now, right? So here's another thing. Does the U.S. government ever shut down or prorogue like Canada? Because Canada hasn't been in office from December and they go back on the 26th. That's 6 months of no government.
How does the country run? I don't understand proroguing. I really don't. Like, especially for that. I think, I'm not an expert here, but I think in America, they take a short recess, like for the summer, maybe for like a month. I don't really know, but it's not like that. No.
6 months, dude.
They don't shut down for 6 months.
If I didn't show up to work for 6 months.
3 or 4 either. Like they're, yeah. And if something happens, they're recalled. Like they're, it's
not here.
Wow, that's crazy.
So then think about this too. So they're going to be in May 26th, and then they go for an extended summer period. So in the matter of 9 months, they'll have worked, I think it's like 3 to 4 weeks in totality in the House of Commons for a 9-month period.
That's a great job. How do I get that?
I know. Can't have a spring budget because there's not enough time to develop a spring budget before they go on a summer break. So we only get a fall economic statement. And I think that's in a comparison that Americans do not. Everyone can be mad at Trump, but I would say he's probably the most, what I believe to see on my side, on the outside, the most transparent about what's going on, where I feel like we have the exact opposite in Canada right now, where people literally outside of mainstream media, unless they go and search, who has time, have no fucking idea what's going on right now. None.
Nope. No. And, things like that are going to keep happening until there's enough outrage.
I can only do so much. You're gonna be so
Well,
mad.
yeah, and I mean,
Oh.
again, I feel like the personality is just too complicit.
Mm-hmm.
The
Oh,
personality
100%.
of the general populace is
Yep.
too complicit,
Yep.
and they're just like, man,
They know what's best. No,
whatever.
you know what's best for you, and you should
Yeah.
start
Oh
getting
yeah.
connected with your body to
Oh
know what's
yeah.
best for you.
Yeah. It's too trusting, I think, is
Hmm.
actually a better word. They're
Yes.
too trusting of the government, and the government definitely has puppet strings attached to it, and those puppet strings are probably in the fingers of
Globalists.
globalists, like at the WEF. And I don't
Hmm.
care if you call me a conspiracy theorist, but
No,
is
it's
the
facts.
Canadian government acting in your best interest by being off for 6 months? No,
Nope. No,
they are not.
no. I want to see. I want to have
There's so many
conversation.
problems in
Yep.
Canada. They
Yep.
should be working day and night to solve them.
And Polyev was going to do that. He was going to keep government in through the summer. He was going to
Yep.
completely push them through to get back on track from the liberal bullshit that they pulled over the last 6 months of proroguing the government and being in too much. I'm sorry. When I have turmoil at home or in my personal life, I still have to go to work. The fuck? Like, you work for us.
Yeah.
You work for our tax money. Where's it going? Another 500 billion going to the Ukraine? No, I'm thank you. No, thank you. We have how many? And that's one thing I will say in comparison too. The vets that get treated in Canada get treated like absolute shit and are offered maids. That's one of the biggest speakers
That.
out of Maid is Kelsey
Yeah.
Shireen, I think is how you say her last name. She is a vet in Canada that her friends have been offered, and herself, I don't know if she has, but people around her have been offered maid instead of help
For what?
through the vet. So I think that the US does so much better for their veterans, and I'm sure it's dependent, but in
Generally,
generally speaking, better than Canadian vets get treated.
yeah, like I avoided the VA for the longest time
Of
because
course.
there were so many horror stories,
Yeah.
and like we have homeless vets too.
Of course. I'm not saying, yeah, for sure.
But yeah, the VA has turned around quite a lot in the last 10 years.
Good.
Both Trump and Biden have signed really positive. I think it started turning around under Obama, I think.
Perfect.
I know there was like a whole scandal where it was starting to hit the news,
Yeah.
and people were just like really fed up with it. But like it's usually the conservative or the Republicans that tend to vote more in favor of
Vets.
veteran projects.
Support.
Biden was an exception too, in that like he passed the PACT Act, which was really helpful in getting like a lot of veterans were exposed to toxic chemicals in burn pits.
Fuck
And
yeah.
so the PACT Act establishes annual screenings and screenings for all veterans,
Yeah.
regardless of whether or not they're enrolled in the VA healthcare system, to find out if they were exposed to these toxic chemicals, and then get them set
need.
up to get treatment through the VA and all that. So
I feel like we
there's
just
been
don't
a
have
lot.
that here. Even though our army and our military, I'm sure, isn't as big, but they still exist.
And
There's still people in it.
were exposed to burn pits too.
Yeah, totally.
Like over in deployed locations.
Afghanistan or
They
whatever.
they've sacrificed. It's so funny. I used to think about when I was 19 and I just fucking knew everything, and I signed up for the military, and I'm sitting there like in the orientation or briefing, like in basic training, and they're talking about how like you signed up, and like you signed up basically to give your life if required. And I'm thinking to myself like, yeah, I'm never going to be required to go like forward deploy and get shot.
Yeah.
Did not consider though that like toxic exposures could give me cancer in my 40s. You know what I mean? Like you don't think about that stuff.
You just think about
like,
the shooting death part of it. You don't think about the like mental part possibly, or the other illnesses you could get from just whatever you're part of.
Each person that joins the military, that's what they're signing up for.
Mm-hmm.
They're putting their life on the line for their country, or the values that their country has, or whatever it is that they believe that they're doing.
Yeah.
They should be treated with reverence. And am I biased? Fine, sure, I'm biased. My dad's a veteran. My grandfather's a veteran. My great uncles. I have an aunt. My brother, me, like tons of veterans. But if someone is willing to sacrifice themselves in that way,
protect the country,
they should be treated with reverence. And I think before you're giving free drugs to people living on the street, or you're giving all this money to
foreign countries,
immigrants in foreign countries, like you really need to take care of the people that have made it possible for you to have that money to give to those people.
the freedom to live, breathe, anything, exist, be
Yeah.
feel safe. And whether they go to war or not, they still signed up to do that when called to, right? So it's like whether you
Yes.
went to active duty or not, you're still a part of all of it. And do I think a lot of the time war is awful? Absolutely. I think there is. And I think there
Mhm.
was a shift, I believe maybe it's fair to say at the end of Obama's term where there was a shift of like less war. And, you know, I think that that's where that shift did come. And obviously it was there, but it
Yeah.
was more like hopefully more in defense, where I feel like there was a time there where it was just, there was wars everywhere. And I do feel like there was a shift, but even if you're signing up to know that that's potentially what you're doing, and that is something that I completely agree. And in
Yep.
Canada, it's like, well, you're having a hard time, here's maids, or here's an SSRI, or it's like, what are the treatments that
Yeah.
are going to actually help? And I'm sure a lot of the people, or a decent amount that are homeless, probably did have that because they're not getting the psychiatric help from
Right.
active duty that they deserve and have, because
Yeah.
it's just not respected as much here. Whether they
Yeah.
did in the States or not in the past, it sounds like they're starting to move in that direction. There is a change from like
They
making our
have. Yeah,
money
they've
from
shifted a
war.
lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. To just
And it's not
supporting
perfect.
veterans.
There's still VA
No,
systems that need to have some bad eggs weeded
of
out.
course. Of course.
And I don't know that hiring freeze was helpful for that. I don't
Probably
really
not.
haven't really dug into the effects that it's had on
Fair.
healthcare and care for veterans, but supposedly it wasn't supposed to impact care.
Mm.
But
See that
anyway,
truth.
yeah, there's no excuse for you know, we had such a bad problem like after the Vietnam War, like,
Mhm.
you know, I don't know if you've ever seen Rambo, but
Yeah,
it was
back
based
then.
on like someone coming back from the Vietnam War and just being
Yeah,
like really, you
fucking
know.
not
But
good.
that was a very common thing, not the Rambo part, obviously, but the people like coming back from the
PTSD.
Vietnam War and having really severe PTSD, having nowhere to go, not being able to get a job because there were a lot of people that were so against the war and they took it out on the veterans
Yeah,
that were coming home.
yeah.
They're like, no, we're not going to hire you. You know, you're a veteran, and you
You
know,
support war, which like, well, I'm like,
yeah,
it's not. You're not. I'm not the right person to be mad at here.
right. So they would come back. They would come back like with PTSD to a country that hated them,
Yeah,
and yeah, so
that takes a
a lot
toll.
of them had a lot of major problems after that. So
Totally. And that's one place that, you know, and too, like, okay, so we've talked about ad nauseum the healthcare too, right? And that's a place where it's like, yes, Canada has where we get in an accident, we go to the hospital. There is some stuff that is absolutely better, quote unquote, here in Canada when it comes to like emergency services being able to be seen without maybe we do pay, but you know what I mean? There is some arguments that there's parts
yeah,
of the system here that are more helpful than down in the States, more cost effective. I will say yes, but your experience is completely opposite. And I feel like that's an argument you have to hear all the time. It's like, well, free Canada healthcare. It's like, okay, but then when those systems get overloaded, there's no private options, there's no other care. So if
yeah,
you're lost in the system,
exactly.
you're fucked. So is that fair to
Yes.
say that there's probably positive and negatives in the healthcare system on both sides in each country?
Of course there is.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, sure there are challenges. I think, and again, like it kind of, in a way, it goes back to some personal responsibility.
of
Like
course.
people like talk about, you know, the affordability of healthcare
Mm-hmm.
here. Um, yeah, that's a problem. And yes, it's the problem I don't face now. I am
Yeah.
fully aware of that. But I have been here in America paying for healthcare, right? It means you work a job that has healthcare benefits or you pay for out of pocket healthcare,
Yeah.
insurance, whatnot. That's a reality.
Mm-hmm.
That's money that you would otherwise be giving to the government. And
To
then
spend
they
on
get
how
to
they choose.
decide. Right.
Yeah.
So it's your healthcare isn't free in Canada.
Mm-mm.
It is not free.
Mm-mm.
You are paying higher taxes. I actually sat down before we moved to Canada and did the calculations. This is how much I'm paying for health insurance. This is how much I would be paying in taxes.
Mm-hmm.
And it came out to the same.
And I'm sure
Like
it's probably way worse
okay,
now.
sorry, how much more I would be paying in taxes in Canada versus
Yeah.
like taxes plus healthcare in America.
Yeah.
It was more, it was just slightly more in Canada, or about the same, rather, sorry. And but the product you're getting for that is not the same.
Yeah.
And that's what I failed to realize. We literally said before we moved to Canada, one of the reasons we did, Donovan and I would talk about it, we'd be like, what if one of us gets cancer? I know. Yeah.
Irony.
Yeah, funny,
Fuck.
isn't it?
Sorry, no, but it's just like in those moments where you're like, fuck.
It's ironic.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And that was a valid concern. I think that just
Yeah.
validated that was a valid
Yeah,
concern.
like there would have been out-of-pocket costs
Yeah.
that I'm not throwing into the calculation
Yeah.
in America.
Yeah. Totally.
But I think you have out-of-pocket costs like when you buy a house.
Mm-hmm.
You're responsible for that. You're responsible for this house.
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why would you have the government be responsible for that? Now, are there people that can't? Yeah, there's people that can't afford healthcare. There's people that are impoverished here and they get Medicaid. There are social programs here
That's true.
that do help people, and I think that's good.
Could be taken advantage of sometimes with people too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's good to have. I think there is a good to have programs for people that can't. It's just like, that's why I hate government gets too involved in it. But then it's like some people abuse the systems. And I don't think in the States you can abuse it as much as you can here in Canada. There's so many people that are on like EI and subsidy, and they're just like, not to be that way, but you're very able to go and do that. There's very much more like, and I'm not saying mental illness shouldn't have a space, but it's like anybody has anxiety. It's like, okay, well, you don't have to work. You can go on EI. And it's like, fuck, that's just like not to be that way. But EI people aren't really paying taxes to help go back into the country, right? So, those things get taken advantage of. And we've seen that during the pandemic when they tried to, all the CERB, and now they're trying to recollect all that money because they realize how much they overspend supporting people and not giving them responsibility of being like, well, I guess they kind of fucked people over because they weren't making them work either, right? So it's just like, you should have let people decide.
Yeah, they weren't letting them work. And then like, they weren't supposed to do what they said they weren't going to do what they're doing.
Yeah. And they fully are.
They're going through almost everybody.
I'm so glad I didn't touch it. Yeah, I'm so glad I didn't touch it. Yeah. I was like, no, I was very blessed that we didn't have to, but I know a lot of people where they also have made mistakes and we're like, we gave you like 10,000. They're like, we got 5. And like, how do you fight these people? It's absolutely insane. Exactly. It's insane.
Yeah, it's very predatory. Anyway.
Yeah, no, and one thing I wanted to also check for you one more time, like one last thing too, because I think I could talk to you for like 18 hours straight. So just your comparison to when you first moved to Canada and you first were Canadian, the vibe to when you left and how you feel. Like the reason why I'm saying that, because I feel like Canada was always regarded as such a nice and welcoming place. But I feel like by the time you left, you actually got more love and welcome in the States the same you would. And I feel like there's a shift where Americans are actually a little bit more welcoming than Canadians are now after 10 years of Liberals.
I think it again depends on the state and the province. When we moved to Canada, we moved to Ontario, we moved to Ottawa, and then Toronto. Yeah. I would not characterize Toronto as welcoming. Good point. Is what it is. Yeah. It's not. And Ottawa was welcoming, like to our daughter when she started school. That was really they were really warm and welcoming. To us, like we didn't really meet anybody. And then, so moving to BC, Campbell River, that was welcoming. And we both love Campbell River and we'll miss it forever. Yes. And vibes. Okay, moving to Texas has been very welcoming. Absolutely. I love that. And that's wonderful. I had moved, if I moved to a different state, I can't say the same because I've lived in many, many states. So, they're not all the same in that way. I don't know that I've noticed a vibe yet.
No. Okay, that's
good. Other than just where I'm at. I think it's just I think the vibe in general of Canada when we got there was, everybody's welcome and there was a lot more pride.
Mm-hmm. Canadian pride,
in a healthy way, a healthy pride, like more of a, we're a great country and we sure, Canada is a great country, of course. When I left though, there was a lot more anger. Mm-hmm. There's a lot more anger, people having anger, and frustration and grumbling. Yeah. And also more struggle.
Yes.
And the toll that takes on people is it tends to kind of just make them turn inward and they start focusing more on so I always think of economic struggle is a tool that the government can use to get people to shut up.
Oh, 100%.
When you're in survival mode, that's all you care about.
You don't even have time to read shit. Yeah. You just read the headlines. You just listen to the news articles at the top, right? You don't look into anything. You have to work 3 jobs just to pay your mortgage. You're not paying attention to politics anymore. No.
Even though like, that's affecting you, but you can't, like, you just only have so many hours in a day. Yeah. Totally. Even if you are paying attention, like, it's not like you can do
everything.
You can't. Yeah. What are you going to do? So, so the vibe when we left America was very divided. Mm-hmm. This was, Trump was being elected and was about to take office when I left.
Right.
And so the country was very much
In turmoil.
divided and like, what's happening. Um, and now I think it's still divided,
Yeah.
but I don't think it's
As
like 50.
angry.
It's like there's fewer people that are willing to just stay over here. There's a lot more
Mhm.
people that are willing to acknowledge they're in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Totally. Yeah.
they're tired of the extremes.
Yeah. Yeah. They're more centrist than ever before. There's like, hey, actually, I don't really fully align with everything that's on like the right, like the Republican side, but I'm really, really down with the left side. Like you guys are
Yeah,
really, that's the vibe that I'm getting. It's like, I don't necessarily,
yeah,
I'm fully Republican and I'm more centrist, but I just cannot possibly continue how that's what I've seen a lot of, like walking away from the Democratic liberal side where you guys
yeah.
swung too far in the side of
Mhm.
progression. Because the thing is like when you swing too far in progression and you don't have safeguards or boundaries, that's where things goes crazy. And that's not what we're seeing in Canada, is that progression
Yeah.
has no boundaries. And if you say something, you're transphobic or racist or misogynist or all these words that immediately shut Canadians down, because Canadians are so like, we happy here north, da 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 da, not so into, business. I feel like people that are more conservative, more business minded, more like, I was a liberal when I was in my 20s and then I grew up and started paying taxes. Now I'm conservative. Like I feel like that's the progression here in Canada. And I do
Yeah.
feel like there's more
Here
conservatives
too.
more than ever. Yeah, but you do,
Yeah,
right?
here
Because
too. Yeah.
and you should. I think in your 20s you should be more liberal and open to like, those that love and all that. And then you get smacked with reality, you get hit around a few times and you're like, okay, now I'm going to have a family. I'm going to put my roots down. How the world turns out matters to me more now than when I'm just drinking and twerking at a bar at 21, Like I think we have to all go through those at a certain time. And I think that's to the point, is like Canada's just going through a realization that maybe not paying attention to all this shit is actually going to affect us like it does down in the States and stuff. Because, depending on where you are, policies mattered. Where across Canada, everyone was happy. Now we're
Yeah.
really starting to see the divide between the East and the West and the provinces and all of that. But I feel like we're on the way up. America's on their way up. We've seen that after
Yeah.
Trump, that, there was division during the Biden, but I felt like Republicans weren't as angry and violent and vicious about it. You know what I mean? And I think that that's slowly starting to change. So I hope here in Canada, we see that as well. I see more Canadians talking about stuff more than ever now. I see them getting a little bit more involved.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to say for other Canadians, like, please don't be stupid and childish. Americans are our friends. They're our sisters. They're brothers or patriots. They care just as much. And even though they spoof on us because we're like their funny, goofy cousin, I think that's important. I like that
You
too.
guys
I
rip
love
on us too.
100%. And I think that's how it should be, because it should be like siblings where we have our little
Yeah.
bickerments and all that. But like, to me, it's never hate. Do I love some of the things? No. But let's come together and work together as we always have, because we are together on one continent, whether we like it or not. So let's try and work towards coming
Yeah.
together.
Even
No elbows up. Like, put them down. Unless we're dancing, unless we're like, I don't
yeah.
know.
Or unless you want to be like the pandemic when we stopped fist bumping and we had to
Exactly.
elbow bump each other.
I guess
That
that's the same thing,
That
isn't
was
it?
so fun.
Ah.
You know what? I think you feel how you feel about America or Canada, but ask yourself why you feel that way. Do you feel that way because, do you have all the information,
It's
first
your
of all?
experience.
Second of all, like reconsider what like we have in common. What we have in common, how we're working together, whether you like it or not, we are intertwined, and that's not going to change.
Mm-mm.
So you can elbows up and you can, please shop local, by the way.
Yes. Always. That shouldn't
I'm
have been a thing.
always shop local.
Yeah, that shouldn't have been a thing.
Yeah.
Should always be a thing. Like, why just now? I was like,
Yeah.
oh, wow, you guys are all supporting Canada, but you only did it because the government told you. You should always be supporting Canadian owned and local stuff first, and then reach out if you need. And also, too, by the way, people are like, I'm not going to shop to Amazon. Brothers, we've had an Amazon store. We're about to launch more in our Amazon store in the couple of years. Like, Canadians also make money off Amazon. So you can actually find, just then, if that's the way, then find Canadian people that are Amazon like stores like that.
Well, like stuff that's like I could shop for Vancouver Island.
Yes. Yeah,
local. Like you
exactly.
can shop local on Amazon.
Stop looking that way. Like, and to the point, like Walmart has Canadian people. Like, that's not the way to do this here, right? Like,
no, it's not. The way to do it is to work to change your government or to make your government speak for you.
Yeah. And
that's the
local
week.
levels too, right? We talked about, I think that the last time when we talked, like really get involved at the local levels because that's where we see change locally, right?
Yeah.
Provincially. And obviously
It's
being involved federally,
so,
but those are where the big changes come from are local and provincial for your personal lives.
and I want to emphasize this about the immigration, the border crossings, and that sort of things. Are there incidences that where someone's treated unfairly? I'm sure
Of
that was
course.
happening before all this started. That's happened under every administration. It's the nature of the beast.
100%.
Uh, but some of the stories that are coming out are bullshit. Like if you look into those stories a little bit more, like there's pieces of information that this media is not giving you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, yeah, I'm not gonna like dive whole into that, but this whole idea of like, Canadians are being turned away for no reason or
No.
detained, and it's fear mongering
Yes.
yet again by the media
Yes. To
for
try
the
and
most
push you
part.
out of the state, to try and hurt them. And it's like,
And I know
no,
there's people that are like, I'm never going to America now, and
shut the
I'm like,
fuck up.
that's fine.
Yeah.
That's your choice.
That's nice of you. I'm like, shut the fuck up.
Be okay. I promise.
We're not, and that's the thing, and that's where it starts. It's like, well, I'm not going to do this. And it's like, that's where it's like, why? Even if that's truly how
Yeah.
you feel, why do you need to get on your soapbox and say it? Like,
Oh, and
what
everybody,
virtual signaling is that? Like, shut the fuck up and then just don't go. And if you,
yeah,
and again, not to be rude, but why weren't you putting money in your own country? Why weren't you trying? Like, I had to, when my government told me I couldn't leave our borders and I couldn't fly down to the States to do that,
yeah,
I did put into my own country. I had no choice to, but like, now all of a sudden we're doing that because it's like, no. We need to come together. We need to support each other. If you want to go to the States, go to the States. If you want to put into Canada, put into
yeah,
Canada, but don't do it because the media or the government told you to. Do it because
right.
that's aligned to you and that's how you feel. And if not, you're just a fucking puppet. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't want to hear you bitching about nothing because you just are a puppet and you do what the government says. Don't care. Your opinion is moot.
When we came down here, for the record, the border crossing was like 90-minute wait.
That's amazing.
So if anybody's telling you that Canadians aren't going to America, it's a lie.
It's a very
Most
big
of them
lie.
are going for a fucking hockey game too.
I've seen so many Canadians down in the States. It's just fear mongering and what you choose to believe in and what timeline you want to be on. I'm not participating in the timeline where I hate Americans and they're scary to me. And if I go down there, I'm sure I'm going to be well received. If you go down there and you start talking about how trashy you, like, it's not, like you said, it's not the administration. It's been like that. If you're a shitty person and you talk shit in the country that you go to, you're putting yourself at risk to being like called out or hurt or anything like that. Like, especially in America. Come on now. I would never go down there and bash.
Yeah, you won't get very far.
Fuck around, find out came from the States, okay? That's just not a place that I am interested in fucking around and find out. But I love you guys, so I know I'd be well received there because I would feel like so enamored to come down and be that. Just like any American that wanted to come up here, I would love to show them Canada. This isn't I think people are seeing that too. The extremes are not a representative of the true patriots, whether they're Canadian patriots or like, American. It's not. Yeah. And I think we're starting to see through that bullshit, but we do have to keep talking about it. And that's why I wanted to bring you on today, because you have experience from both. And then I can question you on what that's like. And whether you think so or not, get to know you a little bit more. Ha ha.
I'm not sure if we got to talk about everything like
no, I know, but we're at almost
fucking here. I will say that though, one thing I wanted to share,
of course, yeah.
Also on this topic is okay. So we live in a town that's about 10,000 people, and the county is about 60,000 people. Our mover, the people that helped us move in, were like a couple of like 19, 20-year-old brothers. They were from Canada.
Wow.
Yeah, just right. I did not seek them out that way. Like, just happened to be
supported Canadian,
right? And then our builders said like the neighborhood that we're in, there's maybe 100 houses. That there's actually a couple of Canadian families here too.
Wow.
So people are leaving Canada in more volume than the media is letting you know.
100%.
And I say that, I mean, just this little area, like I said. So
it's not the opposite anymore. I feel like there's a time where Americans came up here. I remember when my times had been to Vegas was right when I was getting married. And I was working, what was I doing? Receptionist at a dental office. And I was probably making like $30,000 at that time, which is a great wage for a receptionist. It was good in Alberta. Yeah. And I remember going down for my stagette and talking to a guy that was like an accountant and had been an accountant for 5 years in the States. And he was making like 25 grand. And I've been like, holy shit, I make more than an accountant down in the States. Dial ahead 10 years, that is completely different conversations now. I watch a show called The Financial Audit, and they talk about like And I'm not saying I don't make good money. I make good money now, but like the comparison now is totally different where the wages. So like there is a big shift where I think Americans were flying up to Canada and really going up there to make more money, to have more affordable living. There was men from the oil field that would come up and work in this oil field because they are treated so much better up here. They have better like lodging, they have better treatment than they do some places in Texas. Why we haven't fully made the jump ever yet right now, because it is very regulated and way more safe in Canada than it is the States in that field. But now I'm seeing the complete opposite where it's just like, especially under Trump, like so many people think it's crazy. I'm like, no, actually, if I was to move to the States, I'd move down when Trump was in administration because he wants his country to boom. And that's what I want to do as well. And I feel like he is more for being prosperous. That's a big debate, I'm sure, on other ways. But our country, not doing that, does not want us to see us grow and make money off of the natural resources that we do, when we have the cleanest way of doing that and the most profitable for the entire country and all of the world. And I really hope that Carney walks back and Danielle Smith keeps moving ahead and we do get to see us being prosperous. But I just said, if I had to move to the States, I'd move down during Trump's time because I'm aligned to where he is when it comes to where I want to be in my world. I don't feel like under Carney government, I'm going to be able to buy a home. That's just the truth.
You got 3.5 years left of Trump, so
I know we gotta get down there soon, ASAP. Or even who after, like, because I'd be interested to see the people that are in the Republicans that went from being Democrats to Republicans that could be running too, right?
I'm really curious, like
who's next
will be the front runner for the Republican Party now.
Yeah, right. Like, is it and there's just I think there's a lot more Democratic side on the Republican side on the right side that there ever has been in American history from what I can see. So to me, that means, to your point, people are coming more to that centrist ground where, let's bring people. Yeah, let's bring people from all sides. Like the shit that they're doing, RFK is doing is incredible. Like, I would love to see him come up to Canada and talk about that. And so I have faith. I have faith because I see it does seem divided, but I am seeing the end of that. I am seeing more Americans coming together, whether they like it or not. There's going to be some temper tantrums along the way on both sides. And I feel like we'll emanate that as well. And I really do have a feeling that it's not going to be anymore this Canada versus US. It's going to be Canada and US. Not saying the 51st state thing. I'm just saying back to that beautiful relationship. And maybe that. I'm not against it. I would like my Second Amendment. I would like my freedom of speech and guns, please. I'm all for that. But I think that just as people, we're going to see that end soon. I think that was flared up by the Canadian government. I'm not saying Trump was responsible, but he has a hold on, there is Trump derangement syndrome in Canada. They do have a hold on caring more about what he's doing versus what our country's doing. And I think that's going to end soon once they see that it wasn't him. Right?
Yeah, I mean, he's a very convenient show for the media to put forward.
Yeah,
and like, he's a distraction.
100%, and they fucking leaned into that. And again, the guy buckled better than a shitty lawn chair from Walmart. Like, it is what it is. But I'm just so grateful that I'm not one of those people that's in that divide. That I love both my American and my Canadian friends, and I'll continue trying to sow the divide into us as best as I can, just like I try to do with liberals and conservative here. And I think you're on the same page, and I'm so glad that we're in our healing and community era together, that we've made through our nasties and we've been able to watch each other glow up. And I'm really excited to be an escape if you ever want to come back to Canada and come see Kelowna. And I'm really grateful that I know that if something happens,
would love to.
I have a safe haven in Texas with you and Donovan.
I would love to. Yeah, we'd love to have you down. And
yes.
I always enjoy talking to you and catching up with you. And
yes. Have to have you back for season.
All the different topics.
And it always revolves the same thing. It's like, the phoenix and the ashes, whether that's talking about Canada, the States, yourself, your guys' lives. Like, look at now, you're in the now glow up. And I'm just so excited we've been able to digitally timestamp that for you so that, you can go back and see the amazing growth and the fight that you've had, because you deserve that. And I'm so glad to platform that and be a part of it. So dude, thank you. And I can't wait for the next time in season 10. We're like, hey, this is what it's been 6 months in Texas living and through this like trial and stuff. I would really want to see what that's like.
It's been interesting to just even kind of go, okay, stage 4 cancer once, stage 4 cancer twice. Let's completely reinvent my life now.
100%. And you have a blank canvas.
We were going to stay in Campbell River forever. Like, that was the plan before I got sick.
Yeah.
I did not see another move and reboot of my life at 44 years old. Like, absolutely did not. And I'm here for it. I'm leaning into it as hard as I can. There's a lot of healing that I have to do. Like, I'm not really sure what it all is related to Texas in general, but I'm here for a reason. So I'm leaning into it.
I think so too. I think
That's
they're
what you
like,
got.
nope, sorry, girly, you're not meant to be here. We love you, but you're not here right now. You're meant to
Yeah.
be there. Your purpose, your next chapter is there. And now you guys have a blank slate, and now you have your man there, and he's, I'm sure, excited too. Like, new chapter
Yeah.
for him, right? And he has all
Yeah.
this behind him. I know he's grown his social media, standing up for you guys, and I just see you continuing doing that in a place that you feel safe, so you can
Yeah.
actually let those shoulders down and truly let that healing come in. And now you get to try different stuff to help people, because I know there's no way in your life that you're not helping people. Maybe you've got to pause, but I feel like that's going to happen. But you're going to be doing it in a place that you feel safe, not like,
Yeah.
oh, if I start this, who knows where I'm going to be, which of course you've survived cancer twice. It could always come back. I'm not going to be ignorant and say that could never happen. But I feel like you're in a place now that if that does happen, it's not, I'm separated from him, I have to worry about these things. That is kind of off the plate now. So you're free to continue roaming and making an impact. And I can't wait to have you back in season 10 in the fall and see what it's been like living in Texas, and see, what that healings look like, so you can share with others, hey, I've worked through this. This is what I've done. I've changed my environment, new chapter, and it was really good for me, and all that glow up. So thank you again, girl. Is that it? We're good? You feel good? I know we could do this for hours, but we're at 2 hours already. How did that happen?
Yeah, it was.
I know, right? That's what I was like. I know we didn't go through it, but I know. I say that too. I tell Grant every time I say, he's like, how long do you think it'd be I try not to book when he's home, but sometimes I have no choice. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, like an hour, hour and a half. He's like, so 2.5 hours. I was like, bingo, because like I'm never gonna stop good conversation, but I just really appreciate it, Torva, and I know we're all cheering you on, and I thank you again. And guys, I hope you really enjoyed this episode, and until next episode, bye.
Bye.
Thank you guys so much for listening. I truly appreciate the support. If you like this episode and you want to hear more, please follow the Be Real Babe podcast on Spotify, Apple, and Rumble. You can also find me at the Be Real Babe podcast on TikTok and Instagram. Until next time, guys, bye!